I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. Salvati. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. Sabrina Salvati.
All right. Happy Friday, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Sabby Sabs podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you're new, I want to let you know that Sabby Sabs podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Thursdays for the Sabby and JB show. And you can catch me here on Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and every other Sunday. I want to give a shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Rockfin, Twitter, and Rumble. And welcome back, guys, and cheers to the freaking weekend. I am so excited. I hope you guys are. I'm ready for the weekend. It has been a long week. Tonight's theme, ladies and gentlemen, is open the floodgates. Open the floodgates, because apparently that is what is happening with these stories tonight. We also have a breaking news story that I'm going to get to as well. So stay tuned for that. We're going to go ahead and shout out people in the chat, ladies and gentlemen. Let's give it up to Mud Chat for becoming a Sabby member. What's up, fam? Greetings, Max says, vote blue no matter who is too good to be true. This is true. What's up, Lawrence? Please save us. Not another featuring the dog. The dog, Charlamagne. Also, free Palestine. It's actually an interesting one. What's up, Tim? Hey, Sabs, did you hear a study came out showing they suppressed, I think it was 2 million plus votes this last election. And had Kamala got those votes, they say she would have won. Interesting way, you think? The math doesn't add up. I don't believe that at all. The math just doesn't add up. She was behind 8 million from Joe Biden. So even with that 2 million, the math just doesn't add up. They shouldn't even have to go through all. Now they're starting to do the same thing that Trump supporters did in 2020. Like, come on. Shout out to Dave's. The only way that the Dems will win in 2026 and 2028, President Trump's second term must be 10 times worse than his first. Oh. Vote green in 2026 and 2028. No more two-party corporate system. That is interesting that you predict that, Daves. It must be 10 times worse than his first. Interesting. Shout out to Ao. Another plane crash in Philly. What is going on? Seriously. I'll have to look into that. Greetings, Hannah says, Vivek smiling too hard. Greetings, CBC voter says, happy Friday, Sabby Sabs, and Eric T. Red. Shout out to Cloudness. Ayo, I'm not going to lie. Tulsi got busy. She exposed some truths people didn't want out. Salute, Sabby. Happy Friday. Yeah, we're going to get into that story. Shout out to Crom says, happy Friday, Sabby Sabs. What's up, Crom? Greetings, Jake says, hey, Sabinators. Greetings, Mark says, Sab, I hate these fucking Dems. Greetings, Be More in the house. Happy Friday, fam. And you got on the kafia too. That's what I'm talking about. Shout out to Terry says, hello, Sabby and chat. Greetings, Miguel says, peace. Shout out to Casey sends solidarity and fire. Shout out to Abu says, 117. What's up? Greetings, Jay says, happy Friday, everyone. Good to be here with you all. Shout out to Cheetah says, happy Friday. Greetings, C. Shata says, hey, Sabby. Shout out to Megay says, doobie doobie doo. Greetings, D1 says, plane crashes in Northeast Philadelphia. It is crazy what is happening, you guys. Crazy. Greetings, Julia says, hi, peeps. Hello, Sabby. Shout out to James Green giving a thumbs up. And greetings, Notori says, we be in this B from North Carolina Bay. A. What is up, fam? Okay. We have quite a bit to discuss tonight. We actually have a breaking news story that I want to start with first as well. So we'll have 5 news stories. Let's first go ahead and give a shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Thank you guys so much for your support. Really do appreciate you, fam. If you're interested in being a Sabby patron, I have 5 categories. Ultimate, Sabinators. Almost sounds like I'm saying ultimate Sabinators, but ultimate and Sabinators. There's also Sabsters. Don't forget about the Sabbies. You know, they're just pulling that sandwich together. A meaty bunch there doing the damn thing. And of course, we also have members. Yeah, members in the house. What's up? Thank you guys so much for your support. All of their names are listed here. And you can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen on the ticker. And I'm going to give a shout out here to a new Sabby patron. We call them newbies. Let's give it up for Billow. Billow on my pillow. What's up, Billow? Thank you so much. And welcome, guys. I will try not to be as silly tonight. Last night I was cracking up over here. I'll try not to do that tonight. But let's go ahead and show you what stories we are going to discuss, ladies and gentlemen. Just a reminder, I will be live this Sunday because the following Sunday is the Super Bowl. So I will be live this Sunday, but not during the Super Bowl. So what are we talking about, ladies and gentlemen? Let's go ahead and get into it. Oh, buddy. Again, the theme is the floodgates are open. Yes, they are. Everything is coming through that dam. Everything. Tonight, we are discussing, ladies and gentlemen, Charlamagne the God pressures Vivek. Guess what? Vivek is actually back in the spotlight again. He's talking again, folks. That's right. He's back. I know some of you have been wondering, where has he been? So now you're going to hear from him. We're also going to discuss Tulsi Gabbard is in the hot seat. So RFK Jr. already had his confirmation hearing, and Tulsi Gabbard has now had her confirmation hearing. And we are going to dive into some of the things that Tulsi Gabbard kind of exposed during this hearing, which says a lot. Again, I'm not a Tulsi fan. I have many criticisms of Tulsi Gabbard. Every now and then she gets, like 1 or 2 things she's solid on. And during this hearing, I think what happened is that, again, like, because they came at her the way that they came at her, they actually made her look better than she is. So we'll get into that. We're also going to discuss, this is a big one for those of you who are concerned about free speech. You got to pay attention to what is happening by executive order. Donald Trump has announced an executive order for anti-Semitism, and this applies to the universities, but not just the universities. And I'm going to tell you guys how you may be affected by this as well as we'll take a flashback look here, because this is not the first time that Donald Trump has done this. So sometimes I think people forget, but you're going to get a reminder here tonight. So we're going to dive into all of that. And I think everybody needs to be concerned about this particular executive order, regardless if you're at a university. We're also going to discuss Clive Davis was wrong. I've been doing I don't say exposés, but deep dives into certain topics. I did one recently about Gloria Steinem. We are diving deep into Clive Davis. There's some things that I need to explain to people, and we need to dive into. We're going to talk about exploitation and how this relates to music producer Clive Davis. And it's not just in reference to Diddy. So I think you might hear something tonight that you maybe you weren't aware of before. And ladies and gentlemen, we have a breaking news story. It appears that Donald Trump is moving forward with these tariffs. And I'm going to tell you how that is going to affect you directly. So we'll actually start with that breaking news story because it's coming around very quickly. Quick, these super chats. I want to get to these. Thank you, Perry Stein. Big plane crashed in Philly tonight. Yeah, I know everybody keeps telling me I haven't seen it yet, but I'll have to look up this information after the show. This is crazy. Thank you, Fuzzy Balls. No nominee will ever be perfect. The problem is if Tulsi doesn't get approved, any alternative surely will be worse. Mostly good is better than no good. Who wants some John Bolton type? We can talk about that when we get to the Tulsi Gabbard story here. I'm gonna have to cut my bangs. These things just keep growing and it's growing out of control. Thank you, Devotion Orange. Why are your shows getting better and better? Well, thank you. That is nice to hear. I wasn't really aware, but maybe practice. I mean, I've been doing this for 4 years now, so maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's the practice. So it's good. I would hope that I'm getting better. So thank you so much for that. Okay, start us off right. And you know what I'm going to say? Smash the like. Start us off right and smash that like. Thank you. And we're going to dive into breaking news here, ladies and gentlemen. This is something that is pretty urgent and will take effect on Saturday. If you are watching this news story on Saturday, you're seeing the clip of this story. And so just know that while I'm having this conversation. But breaking news, ladies and gentlemen. It appears that Donald Trump has decided to move forward with these executive order, the tariff order on Canada and Mexico, and I believe maybe 10% on China. I want to get into this story, and I know sometimes people feel like, well, it's foreign policy, is not really going to affect us. No, this will affect us directly. Again, Donald Trump is moving forward with tariffs on Mexico, Canada, and it looks like 10% of China. We're going to go ahead and dive into this story right here.
So we'll be announcing the tariffs on Canada and Mexico for a number of reasons. Number one is the people that have poured into our country so horribly and so much. Number two are the drugs, fentanyl, and everything else that have come into the country. And number three are the massive subsidies that we're giving to Canada and to Mexico in the form of deficits. And I'll be putting the tariff of 25% on Canada and separately 25% on Mexico. And we will really have to do that because we have very big deficits with those countries. Those tariffs may or may not rise with time.
Mr. President.
Oh, I was muted? Oh, sorry, Eric. Eric, can you fix that when we do the clip? Sorry, thanks. Otherwise, it's just silly. Okay, so breaking news. These tariffs against Canada and Mexico will start on Saturday. So if you're watching the clip, which you will see on Saturday, that would be today. So that being said, people need to understand that this is going to have a direct impact on us because we do receive goods and products from Canada and Mexico. And I believe I read somewhere that maybe 10% of these tariffs may go towards China. And if that's the case, you need to ask another question. Why only 10% to China? You know, China has a stronger economy. So maybe it's that he realizes, well, we can't go too heavily on China because we get even more goods from them than we do Canada and Mexico. And I'm going to show you what that looks like. My advice to all of you is if you have not been to the grocery store yet and you need to go grocery shopping, you should probably go ahead and do that. You may think that these tariffs against Mexico and Canada will not have an effect there, but that's actually wrong. Actually wrong. So let's continue on, folks. I'm not kidding around. It's starting Saturday.
Part of that, though, because we get oil from Canada.
Oil is going to have nothing to do with it as far as I'm concerned. Oil has nothing to do with it.
Tariffs on Canada and Mexico, 25%. That's coming on Saturday?
It's coming on the first Saturday.
But no oil tariffs.
No, I don't. Well, I didn't say that. You said that.
Well,
No.
I don't want to
No, we may or may not. We're going to make that determination probably tonight on oil. Yeah, because they send us oil. We'll see. It depends on what the price is. If the oil is properly priced, if they treat us properly, which they don't. Look, Mexico and Canada have never been good to us on trade. They've treated us very unfairly on trade. And we will be able to make that up very quickly because we don't need the products that they have. We have all the oil you need. We have all the trees you need, meaning the...
If we don't need the products that they have, if we have all the oil that we need, then why are we getting oil from them? If we have all the products, the trees and everything that we need, why are we receiving products from them? Because we don't have everything that we need. We don't produce enough here in this country. Once upon a time we did, but corporations became very greedy. And they sent jobs to other countries and they decided, you know what, it's actually cheaper to get some of these goods and products from other countries. Let's continue on.
Lumber, we have more than almost anybody in those two categories. In oil, we have more than anybody, and we don't need anybody's trees. We have to free up some of the tree areas that we have. We have great lumber in this country. We have to free them up environmentally, which I can do very quickly. But we don't need what they have. And for us to be subsidizing Canada to the tune of $175 billion a year and subsidizing Mexico to the tune of $250 billion, $300 billion a year. And Mexico is a method of China sending in its product. And with China, I'm also thinking about something because they're sending fentanyl into our country. And because of that, they're causing us hundreds of thousands of deaths. So China is going to end up paying a tariff also for that. And we're in the process of doing that.
Okay, folks, if you're just joining again, the tariffs against Mexico and definitely Canada will start on Saturday. Now, I want to show you how this is going to impact us here in the United States, since we do receive goods and services from these countries. Here is how these tariffs can impact your wallet. And I think that's what a lot of you want to know. Like, how is this going to affect my purse? Listen to this.
Tariffs are the most beautiful word. I think they're beautiful. It's going to make us rich.
Tariffs are a major part of President-elect Donald Trump's foreign policy and economic agenda.
We want fairness from other countries. We have not been treated fairly, and we're going to get fairness.
Put simply, tariffs are a tax on goods from another country paid by the company importing them, usually to protect national industries or as a trade negotiation tool. Quick history lesson. In the U.S., tariffs started out steep.
You can say there were three distinct periods of tariff history in the United States, from, say, 1790 to 1860, when tariffs were the main source of federal revenue. Something like 90% of all federal revenues was based on taxing imports. From the Civil War to the Great Depression of the 1930s, we had tariffs for protection. Tariffs were raised to very high levels on a variety of imports, and basically those industries were protected.
But that changed in the mid-1930s.
Policymakers decided that high tariffs were not really good for the American economy. So from the 1930s all the way up to now, we've had a progressively lower and lower tariffs.
In 2018, President Trump imposed sweeping tariffs on China, an effort to reduce the trade deficit and boost U.S. manufacturing. The Biden administration kept most of these tariffs and
pause, and we'll go back a little bit. I just wanted you to hear this part, because one of the things they do mention, at least they were honest, that Donald Trump imposed tariffs during his first presidency, but the Biden administration also decided to maintain some of those tariffs as well. So this is something that both administrations have done. And then remember, one of the things a lot of people complained about during Biden-Harris administration was the economy, the high prices. I told you guys the price of eggs just soared up again. So these tariffs that we have on these other countries, yes, it does impact us economically. It can hit your wallet. I think people do need to understand that when you hear politicians say, let's bring manufacturing back to the U.S. again, they're not talking about your mom and your grandparents' manufacturing, where people are standing on an assembly line and they're just pushing the products through. Those days are long gone. Technology has consumed a lot of those positions, or they were sent, those jobs were sent overseas to China as well. So while manufacturing has been coming back to the United States, you do have to understand it will never be the way that it was back in the 40s or the 50s or the 60s. So people really do have to understand that. But both of these administrations have continued to allow tariffs. So you can't say it was just a Trump thing. You can't say it was just a Biden thing.
Manufacturing. The Biden administration kept most of these tariffs and, in some cases, even raised them on $18 billion of Chinese goods, though the move is said to be largely symbolic.
The 2018 tariffs do appear, as best economists can judge things, to have raised the price level by 1% to 2%.
Larry,
did you hear that? So raising the price level by 1% to 2%. And those are the tariffs from 2018.
Summers is former U.S. Treasury Secretary under Democratic President Bill Clinton. He says the tariffs were not effective.
The evidence is that they made a small contribution to inflation. Tariffs tend to make the people in the countries who impose them poorer because they raise the price of what they buy, and that makes paychecks go less far.
But not with Russia, right? So tariffs with some countries, it depends, right? Like think about all of the sanctions that the US has hit Russia with, and Russia's economy still continues to be fine, right? So some countries can withstand it if they have a strong economy, and then there are others that may not be able to tolerate this as well. Now that's coming from Larry Summers, but this guy here is going to say something different. Watch this.
But others, like Orrin Cass, chief economist at conservative think tank American Compass, say tariffs ultimately benefit the economy.
What we saw in 2018 when President Trump first imposed a lot of tariffs was there were some places where there was an effect on prices. A lot of times that was short-lived. When we do collect tariffs, if people do have to pay more, that's tax revenue that goes to the government. So we can use that to reduce other taxes. We can use that to reduce our deficit. We can use that to actually support the creation of more manufacturing here in the United States.
While the efficacy,
but none of that increases the amount of money in your wallet. None of that increases like your bank account. So that's something that people do need to keep in mind. Notice they continue to show you the pictures of people at the grocery store, right? Because when I show you this, you're going to see other things that we get from Canada, Mexico. And if I remember correctly, the tariffs that Donald Trump had in 2018, I don't believe those tariffs were against Mexico and Canada. I know there were tariffs against China. So we're talking about two different countries here that we do actually get more from than people realize.
Of tariffs is still widely debated. Their international reach is indisputable. After President Trump's tariffs on China in 2018, the country retaliated with tariffs of its own on U.S. goods. Now in 2025, Mexico is threatening to do the same after President Trump said he would impose strict tariffs on China, Mexico, and Canada.
I think we may be in the midst of a sort of third big change in U.S. tariff policy.
And that's Tariffs Simply Explained.
So Mexico is already responding, and Mexico is saying that they may hit us back with tariffs. So you see this back and forth. And so when I say like open the floodgates, that's the theme tonight, because the floodgates are opening. And yes, they can respond to us in that way. But what exactly do we get from Canada and Mexico? And this is what I want people to see. We have a great graph here. What does the U.S. import from Canada and Mexico? Check this out. So from Canada and Mexico, I'll make it a little bit bigger. I guess we can't make the graph bigger, but I'll go back to the other chart. From Canada and Mexico. Now, red is Canada, green is Mexico. So machinery and transport, 26% from Canada, 74% from Mexico. I'm assuming, because I don't see another category closer to this, I'm assuming part of that could have to include auto parts. Because for those who are not aware, a lot of the auto parts that we receive in this country come from Mexico. So think about it this way, fam. Again, you might think to yourself, that's not going to affect me. What happens if your check engine light comes on and your car start making this weird noise? I'm used to the check engine light, okay? So I'm the check engine queen. I'm taking my car to the shop every other month. Anyway, it's always something. But you take your car to the shop and they tell you, okay, well, we have to replace the alternator or something like that, something that's not really cheap, but it's not super expensive, whatever. And let's say typically they'll tell you, with parts and labor, they kill me when they do that. With parts and labor, you're looking at roughly around $200. Okay. But if this continues, which it says these tariffs will start on Saturday, and we don't know how long it's going to last either. But if it continues, now you may have to pay more because the auto parts, most of them come from Mexico. So again, you might think it won't affect you until something happens. There's more. Mineral fuels and lubricants. Okay. 85% from Canada, 15% from Mexico. So I don't know if anyone's looking to purchase some KY jelly or any of that jazz. But apparently we're receiving that from Mexico and Canada too. It's really interesting. Like some of these goods. People are going to laugh now. We're moving on to manufactured goods. This says it includes vehicles, electronics that have undergone a significant manufacturing process. So 61% from Canada, 39% from Mexico. So that's manufactured goods that we also get from both of those countries. Then there's also miscellaneous manufactured, covers less standardized products like furniture and toys. 30% from Canada, 70% from Mexico. Now here's something that we could fix. Why are we getting furniture from Canada, Mexico? We can't build furniture here? And maybe we don't build all of it here, but still, why are we getting furniture from other countries? Let's bring back the wood shop classes so that people can learn how to build furniture again in this country. But again, may not be something that you're thinking about until, let's say, like your table breaks or something like that, and you have to go replace a table, or a bookshelf is another one, right? May not think about it at that time. Someone is telling me something about the lubricant. This is funny. Oh, thank you, Jim. Hey, I have no shame. Jim said lubricants is industrial. Thank you. Hey, when it's live, it's live. I'm sorry. Okay, carrying on. Food and live animals. This one was a doozy too. This one kind of threw me for a loop. 51% from Canada, 49% from Mexico. Why are we getting food and live animals from Canada and Mexico? Now, some of you may think this doesn't affect you either, but if you like avocado toast, or you like to put avocados in your smoothies, people love that avocado. Or if you want to make some damn guacamole, or if you want to go to a restaurant, a Mexican restaurant, and you want guacamole on your taco or your quesadilla, that would also increase. Because I think the only places that we get avocados from, I think it's Mexico and California. Doesn't California also grow avocados? I think it does. I know, Joy. It is. My mind is in the gut. I don't know what's going on tonight. Okay. Yeah. So you remember the commercials, avocados from Mexico. Yeah. So those two, something you may not think about. Avril said mangoes too. That's another one, again, that you may not think about. It goes on to say other commodities, 60% from Canada, 40% from Mexico. Chemicals, 75% from Canada, 25% from Mexico. Crude materials, this excludes fuels. 84% from Canada, 16% from Mexico. And beverages and tobacco, 12% from Canada and 88% from Mexico. But as you can see, the most that we receive is machinery and transport up there at the top. And if I scroll here, they also have a table here that you can see where they have the category, Canada, Mexico, and the total, and they can show you how much money. Look, billions of dollars. This is something I wanted you to hear too as well. The largest share comes from machinery, vehicles, oil, and petroleum products. Again, not something you may think about until something happens with your car. So just something to keep in mind. It says that Mexico is the world's 7th largest passenger vehicle manufacturer, and 76% of its exports go to the United States. Oh boy, this is a big one. I'm gonna make this bigger so you guys can see. The U.S. imports fruits, vegetables, including tomatoes, berries, and avocados from Mexico. Mexico is the 2nd largest supplier of agricultural products to America. So I brought up the avocados, but berries, tomatoes. How many of you like a good tomato, right? With your sandwich, or you want to make spaghetti sauce? You need those crushed tomatoes. So keep in mind, think about this, guys. Canada's top export product to the U.S. is crude petroleum and gas. But the country also has an import share of other products like vehicles, machinery, and electronics. And again, like I said, so when we're talking about prices will probably increase, then that also means that you might see gas prices increase too. So I'm like, here we go again, right? So I don't know, man. Again, it starts on Saturday. This is in response to the immigration demands that Donald Trump has made, where he wants Mexico and Canada to strongly, I guess, shut down their borders so that we are not having that migration take place. And he is, of course, blaming them for the fentanyl crisis that's coming into the U.S., et cetera. And I think some people thought that Donald Trump was joking at first when he started talking about this. But no, he's not joking. And the tariffs start on Saturday. So my advice to everybody is, if you need to go grocery shopping, if you want to get some avocados, you might want to do that tonight. I don't know. But tomatoes, berries, all of that jazz. But the floodgates are open. All right. Let's go to some of the comments here. I know people said tacos because you guys know I love tacos. I know, right? I know that's a big one. Tim said Trump is never joking. Interesting. I think you're right about that one. Thank you, Andrew. We like when you're silly. We need to laugh to help get through all the BS that keeps coming our way. Well, thank you, Andrew. Thank you. Let's go to Tristan. Mexico is the U.S. largest trading partner above all others. Note that. Yeah, buddy. Jen, everything in our homes is made in China. Thank you, Trusting Success. Sabby, be yourself. We love when you're silly, you're serious, silly, funny, frustrated, etc. We're just happy to see and hear from you. Thank you so much. Brian says the U.S. will alienate itself. I think it's like, Mexico at one point considered joining BRICS, but that did not happen. But I almost feel like these actions are going to push other countries to apply to join BRICS. You're pushing them further away. Thank you, H. Lukill. Tariffs are taxes for you, people. Jan says Temu bad. I'm shopping like a billionaire. Temu. Thank you, Fuzzy Balls. BRICS freaking loves Trump. Hashtag de-dollarization. And thank you, Hotspot Casino. What's up, family? What's up with you, Hotspot? Thank you, Satra. U.S. Indico made car parts in the past, i.e. carburetors. Indian made RV. NC made furniture. Georgia made carpet. Give Friedman reparations. We will rebuild USA. These are all really good points, Satra. Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, why are we not? Come on, we're not making enough furniture. My grandparents told me, they said back in the day when they were growing up, when you bought like living room furniture and bedroom furniture, like the furniture, the quality of it was so good that you didn't have to go back and buy another bedroom set. It used to be you could buy furniture and it would last for a long time. But I grew up, I'm a millennial, and I grew up in the generation that had IKEA. We're used to things falling apart. Oh my gosh. Crazy times, folks. Crazy times. Let's go to Rockfin. Thank you, Roger. Drilling at home is not enough to make oil cheap. He has to be willing to nationalize Getty, ExxonMobil, Sunoco, BP, Citgo, etc. In the meantime, begin the process of moving us away from fossil fuels and towards nuclear power using thorium rather than uranium. Or if that makes you nervous, then put us on a path using graphene from hemp instead of lithium for batteries, circuit boards, and semiconductors. Using hemp is more environmentally friendly because the cultivation and harvesting adds to the earth instead of taking away from it, with drilling for oil or excavating for minerals. Not to mention good for making other things stronger than steel. Yeah, hemp is another one that I feel like people don't tap into as much or talk about as much. Like people keep saying, solar power, nuclear power, but people aren't mentioning like all the different things that we can do with hemp, which I think is really important. Really important. All right, guys. Hey. Smash that like button. Did you smash it? And if you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share. And we're moving on to a little bit of craziness. A little bit of crazy love. A little bit of crazy love. Okay. RFK Jr. had his committee hearing in front of Congress. And now Tulsi Gabbard has had her hearing. And I don't think it went any better for Tulsi Gabbard in the sense that the way that she was treated in that room was ridiculous. But I do think that Tulsi was able to handle herself a little bit better than RFK. I felt like she was very composed. And another thing that I noticed is that when she was interrupted, she continued to talk. At one point, she said, "Let me speak." Let me speak. So Tulsi can be good, in my opinion, usually like on one or two issues, I will agree with her with. I don't agree with Tulsi Gabbard, making the decision to nod her head, give the nod for U.S. surveillance. She was against that. She championed against it. And, she had to walk it back, I guess, in order to be still considered for this position in Trump's cabinet. And I don't like that. But this particular hearing with Tulsi Gabbard, I feel like, again, these representatives are showing you who they are, right? So like these Congress members, they're showing you that they really don't want anyone in there that is going to have a different opinion than what the State Department wants you to have. Like, don't get me wrong, when it comes to Israel, she's totally in lockstep with that, with the State Department narrative, right? She said that these kids in the United States are being radicalized by radical Islam. And she said some things that, in my opinion, appear to be Islamophobic as well. That being said, I think when it came to this particular discussion about Edward Snowden, I think she handled herself very well. I want to start with part of this opening statement. I want you to listen to what she said at the very end of her opening statement.
Now, before I close, I want to warn the American people who are watching at home. You may hear lies and smears in this hearing that'll challenge my loyalty to and my love for our country. Those who oppose my nomination imply that I am loyal to something or someone other than God, my own conscience, and the Constitution of the United States. Accusing me of being Trump's puppet, Putin's puppet, Assad's puppet, a guru's puppet, Modi's puppet, not recognizing the absurdity of simultaneously being the puppet of 5 different puppet masters. The same tactic was used against President Trump and failed. The American people elected President Trump with a decisive victory and mandate for change. The fact is, what truly unsettles my political opponents is I refuse to be their puppet. I have no love for Assad or Gaddafi or any dictator. I just hate Al-Qaeda. I hate that we have leaders who cozy up to Islamist extremists, minimizing them to so-called rebels. As Jake Sullivan said to Hillary Clinton, quote, Al-Qaeda is on our side in Syria. Well, Syria is now controlled by an al-Qaeda offshoot, HTS, led by an Islamist jihadist who danced in the streets on 9/11 and who was responsible for the killing of many American service members.
So this is Tulsi Gabbard letting them know right from the very beginning during her opening statement that she is not anyone's puppet. She's like, stop calling me these names, right? And I told you guys before, even if you said that you wanted peace, you wanted the war in Ukraine to end, people started smearing you as Putin puppets, right? Like a number of us got attacked that way. It's just ridiculous. So they've been doing this to Tulsi Gabbard for quite some time, especially when it comes to Assad. Tulsi has been very vocal and said that she's against these regime change wars. Now, again, all this goes out the door when it comes to Israel, right? Because she's not going to acknowledge what Israel is doing to the Palestinian people. She's not going to acknowledge the oppression, the occupation, any of that. So let's be clear. She's not consistent across the board when she calls out a lot of these issues, in particular in the Middle East. But I did think that she started off very strong to let them know that she is not going to be referred to as a puppet, and that just because she has a different opinion or a different, outlook when it comes to these particular issues, that doesn't give them the right to smear her in the way that they have been doing for quite some time. I also noticed something else. She's wearing all white again. Tulsi Gabbard wore all white when she was on the debate stage and she was debating Kamala Harris. Remember that knockout punch when she said that Kamala Harris laughed about, locking up people for marijuana, and she just basically threw her whole record out there on the stage and everything. So I wonder if Tulsi, when she wears all white, if she's trying to send a message, because here's the thing, colors do matter, right? Like red is would not be a good color to wear to something like this. They're already going to, target you in such a way. Red can come off as very defensive. Blue can come across as calm, but she's probably not going to wear all blue because she used to be a Democrat. She's not anymore. Just running this through my head. But white is supposed to signify, angelic purity, like that type of thing, innocence. And I wonder if she purposefully chose white because of that. So just keep that in mind. If Tulsi was wearing a different color, I wonder if people may have a different opinion, because now she doesn't look like the aggressive one. And I don't think that she was. They were. So they even look 10 times worse, because people will look at her and be like, why are you yelling at this woman? What is wrong with you guys? Brown Bunny said, like a virgin touched for the very first time.
Democrat senators in the past resorted to anti-Christian bigotry against some of President Trump's judicial nominees like Amy Coney Barrett and Brian Boucher. I condemn those actions as a Democrat in Congress at the time, as religious bigotry must be thoroughly condemned by all of us, no matter the religion. Unfortunately, there are some Democrat senators who still don't understand the principle of freedom of religion and Article 6 of the Constitution. Quote, no religious test shall ever be required as a qualification to any office or public trust under the United States. Unfortunately, they're once again using the religious bigotry card, but this time trying to foment religious bigotry against Hindus and Hinduism. If anyone is sincerely interested in knowing more about my own personal spiritual path of Hinduism, I welcome you to go to my account on X, where I'll share more on this topic.
Her religion shouldn't even matter. I said this too when Barack Obama was president. Who cares what religion he is? Is freedom of religion supposed to be? We're supposed to have freedom of religion in this country, but here we are.
If confirmed as Director of National Intelligence, I will continue to live by the oath that I have sworn at least 8 times in my life, both in uniform and as a member of Congress. I will support and defend our God-given freedoms enshrined in the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, so that was Tulsi Gabbard's towards the end of her opening statement, and now we're going to get to the point where we open the floodgates. Okay, because one of the topics as I'm sure you can imagine, that was mentioned was Edward Snowden. And so we have to get to that. And let's go ahead and dive right in.
Thank you. Colleagues, I will lead by example and yield back 1 minute of my time and recognize the Vice Chair.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. That is a first. Ms. Gabbard, let me be clear, at least in my views. I salute your service to our country, but I have serious doubts about your judgment. And those are some of the areas that I want to pursue. First, until you were nominated by the president to be the DNI, you consistently praised the actions of Edward Snowden.
Here we go.
Some who, I believe, jeopardized the security of our nation, and then, in an effort to flaunt that, fled to Russia. You even called Edward Snowden, and I quote here, a brave whistleblower. Every member of this committee supports the rights of legal whistleblowers. But Edward Snowden isn't a whistleblower. And in this case, I'm a lot closer to the chairman's words, where he said Snowden is, quote, an egotist.
Oh, sorry, I don't know what happened there, folks.
Closer to the chairman's words, where he said Snowden is, quote, an egotist.
Oh, I hate how it does this. Sorry, guys. Let me reset this again. Okie doke. Let's try this again. We'll jump forward.
I'm a lot closer to the chairman's words, where he said Snowden is, quote, an egotistical serial liar and traitor who, quote, deserves to rot in jail for the rest of his life. Ms. Gabbard, a simple yes or no question. Do you still...
Pause. So is the problem whether or not Edward Snowden was a whistleblower or the fact that he had an ego? Like what? Didn't Edward Snowden reveal secrets? Didn't he reveal secrets about what national, what intelligence was doing? That they were spying on people against their will? He blew the lid off that, right? Glenn Greenwald interviewed Edward Snowden, and Edward Snowden told us what we should have been told, which is that you should know that. You should know that if you open up your laptop, that your little webcam there, that someone could be watching you that you don't want to watch you. Because we have a right to privacy in this country. And by doing that, you are invading people's privacy. So I think what Edward Snowden did is not only just noble, but he did what he should have done, telling people the truth about what our government was doing. So I get bothered when people like Warner say, oh, no, well, he was not a whistleblower. Yes, he was. Just because he blew something that you didn't want people to know or you didn't think should have been blown doesn't mean he wasn't a whistleblower. They're opening the floodgates, folks.
Think Edward Snowden is brave?
Mr. Vice Chairman, Edward Snowden broke the law. I do not agree with or support with all of the information and intelligence that he released, nor the way in which he did it. There would have been opportunities for him to come to you on this committee or seek out the IG to release that information. The fact is, he also, even as he broke the law, released information that exposed egregious, illegal, and unconstitutional programs that are happening within our government that led to serious reforms that Congress undertook.
Chairman, we got 5 minutes.
Did you notice what she did? Notice how when he was interrupting her, she continued to talk. And not only that, she remained calm. This is something I think that RFK didn't do the best job of during his hearing. He didn't remain as calm. Whereas Tulsi, I think she has a lot of practice doing this. Like she knew, okay, whatever I do, I probably should not get my emotions all riled up. So let me remain calm. That way they end up looking like the jackass. And that's what happened. Warner just looked absolutely ridiculous. So let's talk about breaking the law and doing what's right. If there is a law that is in place that prevent you from doing what's right, Should you not break it? Think about that for a second. Because there have been many laws that have been broken, but they were doing what's right. If you go back to the civil rights movement, all the marches, and remember the sit-ins at the diners where they weren't supposed to sit there. They weren't supposed to do that. They broke the law, but I would say they were doing what was right. MLK got his head bashed in, dogs sicked on him. They were like, you broke the law because you're in a section you're not supposed to be in. That was the law. There were Jim Crow laws, but I would still say they were doing what was right. So the question should be, is the law always right? Think about that for a second. This guy is a doozy.
So I take your answer, and these are your quotes. Brave, please join my bipartisan legislation calling for charges to be dropped against him. Do you disagree that legislation was not appropriate? Do you believe he is brave or not?
Edward Snowden broke the law. He also released information
we agree that Edward Snowden
that
broke
exposed the United States government's
whether
illegal
your
programs.
legislation and your words are still your beliefs. Yes or no?
Pause. So what she just did there, which I think is ever so important, is that Tulsi Gabbard just showed you that, yes, Edward Snowden broke the law, but he revealed illegal activity that the U.S. government was doing. The U.S. government was also breaking the law. So why are they pretending like we need to call out what Edward Snowden did, but we're not going to call it the fact that the U.S. government also broke the law? These are the things that people need to pay close attention to. So he doesn't want her to finish what she said, or he doesn't want you to pay attention to what she said. So he comes in to interrupt. That's the distraction. Edward Snowden should be allowed to return back to the United States, in my opinion. Now, I don't know if it would be the best thing for him for his safety, but I would consider what Edward Snowden did to be a brave thing. I think he should be allowed to come back home. And not just him, other people too. Assad Shakur, you should be able to come back home. What kind of country is this? What are we doing? But Warner, he wants his moment in the spotlight. So here we go.
I agree that Edward Snowden
that
broke the
exposed
law.
the United States government's illegal
your
programs.
legislation and your words are still your beliefs. Yes or no, please.
I'm making myself very clear. Edward Snowden broke the law. He released information about the United States government's
I've got
illegal activities.
Ma'am,
If I may just finish my thoughts, Senator. In this role that I've been nominated for, if confirmed as Director of National Intelligence, I will be responsible for protecting our nation's secrets. And I have 4 immediate steps that I would take to prevent another Snowden-like leak.
Ma'am, I would simply ask you again. I don't think you're going to answer. I agree with Tom Cotton. He's a traitor. You, for years, until you got chosen by President Trump, have celebrated this guy as brave. You've called for him to be pardoned, for his charges to be dropped. I cannot imagine a director of national intelligence that would say that kind of behavior is okay.
Didn't Joe Biden just pardon Hunter Biden? Didn't that pardon go all the way back to 2014, which would include Hunter Biden's dealings with Burisma in Ukraine? So how are you gonna call out someone saying that Edward Snowden should be pardoned when you had the former president pardon his son, some of his other crazy ass family members too? So I don't think when we talk about pardons, let's be clear here. But Mr. Warner, is just being very performative. It reminds me that time when Cory Booker was during one of the hearings and Cory Booker said, I am Spartacus, that I am Spartacus moment. That's what he wants. He wants attention. Mr. Warner's like, now is my turn to be on TV. I'm not AOC or any of these other politicians. So now is my moment to get that shine. And the reality is, I think a lot of Americans are more likely to side with Tulsi Gabbard when it comes to Edward Snowden than Mr. Warner. Because a lot of people don't trust the government. And the reason why some people don't trust the government is because you guys have been spying on people against their will.
How would we maintain the trust of the IC and the contractors who work for it? How would we maintain the trust of our Five Eye partners? I find it very troubling. Let me move to 702. I know other members are going to raise this. Remember, the 702 is critical to our national security. 60% of the president's daily brief, 60% of the information President Trump gets every day in a PDB will come from this. You've had a long history of opposing 702. Many members of Congress have. But one of the things you actually done that not many have is not to reform it, but you actually said you wanted to repeal it. But now, whether it's confirmation conversion or whatever, you call 702 vital. And I'm quoting, because of significant FISA reforms have been enacted since you left Congress. Ms. Gabbard, what are the reforms that have led you to now support 702?
In the short time that I have, Senator, I will just note that my actions in legislation in Congress were done to draw attention to the egregious civil liberties violations that were occurring at that time.
Ms. Gabbard, Ms. Gabbard, I ask you a question. Please give me the courtesy of responding. You said the reforms now make you support it. What can you cite? Which reforms?
There are a number of reforms to include getting rid
in the new law,
that,
right?
that all of you and your wisdom.
Ms. Gabbard, my time is getting short, but I got to just tell you, after the reforms were passed into law in April of 24, you went on Joe Rogan's podcast in May.
Of course, it always goes back to Joe Rogan. Does everybody see what's happening here? It always goes back to you were on Joe Rogan's podcast, and that's why. Oh, my God.
The bill is now law. And you said, quote, this bill took an already bad problem and made it many, many times worse. Again, in my mind, this is a question of judgment. 702 is critical. I appreciate this late conversion, but I'm not sure I buy it because you've had such a consistent position. Again, I know my colleague's going to raise these, but rather than standing up to dictators like Putin and Assad, you've sometimes amplified his talking points. I mean, I just do not understand how you can blame NATO for Putin's brutal invasion.
Because it is connected to NATO. So does everybody see? What did Tulsi Gabbard say at the end of her opening statement? She said she is not Putin's puppet, Assad's puppet, anybody else's puppet, that she's her own woman, that she's a free thinking person. That's what she said right at the beginning, because she knew what they were going to say. And Mr. Warner, of course, walks right into it. Now, the 702 part, I will admit, this is one of the things that I did want to address. Remember, I told you guys I was not happy about her flipping on that, because that she did have a firm position about that, but she did flip on that because I guess she felt it would help her in trying to win the votes for this position, right? Because this is an intelligence position. So I didn't like that. Don't agree with it. I really don't agree with Tulsi Gabbard on much, to be honest, but I do agree with her about NATO. Yeah. Provoking Russia for this war. I do agree with her about that. I do agree with her with ending regime change wars. So it seems like he's just bouncing around to the typical things that we all knew they were going to use to throw at her, which she already called out. She got the upper hand because at the end of her opening statement, she already basically told them what they were going to say about her. It's just like that scene in 8 Mile. You remember 8 Mile, the movie with Eminem? Remember towards the end when they were freestyling that, freestyle competition. And I think the last rhyme that Eminem did, he said, "I know everything that you are going to say about me." So Eminem called out himself. He said, "I am broke. I am a bum. I do live in a trailer with my mom." He said all of those things about himself. So when he passed the mic over to his competitor, he had nothing to say. So it was actually smart what she did at the end of the opening statement when she said, this is not who I am. I know what you're going to say about me. And this is exactly what he's doing because he has nothing else to do. What are you going to do?
Of Ukraine. And when Assad used chemical weapons against his own people, you didn't condemn him. I can go through all the quotes. You actually questioned Americans' intelligence. Now, you mentioned a lot about trust. You know, and one of the things that I'm so proud on this committee is my friend Senator Verse said, we always follow the truth. I say on this committee, the most valuable work I do in this, and we have a bipartisan approach to intelligence. I think we have worked to try to keep the intelligence community and earn their trust, and frankly, earn the trust of the American people. But I respectfully, ma'am, I just don't believe on your judgment and credibility issues that this is the appropriate role that you should take going forward.
Who has a worse chance of getting in? RFK or Tulsi? I'm curious to hear what you guys think about that. You can tell me in the chat. Obviously, we knew he wasn't going to be going towards, for her anyway. But with the Tulsi thing, that's a tough one. I don't know if I can answer that question myself. What are you guys saying here? Who has a harder chance to get in? RFK, Tulsi, RFK, Tulsi, RFK. Wow, this is it's gonna be tough. I think it's gonna be tough. Oh boy, it's almost even now. Oh my gosh, I guess we'll have to wait and see. But you guys know they weren't feeling her, right? You knew they weren't going to be feeling her anyway. And the Democrats definitely aren't going to be feeling her because she left the Democratic Party and she moved over to the Republican Party. So keep that in mind too.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Gabbard, Edward Snowden does stand out as having done particularly grave harm to our national security by revealing top secret information, including sensitive sources and methods, thus jeopardizing agents in the field. So let me ask you a question. If confirmed, would you support or recommend a pardon or any kind of clemency for Edward Snowden?
Why is Susan Collins speaking this way? I don't know if everyone's familiar with her, but she is a senator from Maine. She's Republican, but she's a little bit more moderate Republican, similar to Charlie Baker. Charlie Baker was our former governor here in Massachusetts, but I don't remember her speaking like this. So I don't know what's going on. It sounds like something is a little... Rago said Miss Collins is a fake Republican. Her voice sounds a little shaky. I don't know if there's something going on or I don't know. Very weird.
Thank you for the question, Senator Collins. If confirmed as the Director of National Intelligence, my responsibility would be to ensure the security of our nation's secrets and would not take actions to advocate for any actions related to Snowden.
So the answer is no. Is
Correct.
that correct? In 2020, you introduced the Protect Brave Whistleblowers Act, which would amend the Espionage Act to make it more difficult to prosecute individuals who reveal classified information. In particular, the bill would allow individuals to disclose even top secret information as long as it's not done with the specific intent to injure the United States or advantage any foreign nation. Your bill would also have created an affirmative defense if public disclosure of classified information were made for several reasons, one of which was to expose gross waste of funds. I strongly oppose this legislation, which would hamper our ability to prosecute people who give our adversaries classified information. So let me ask you this, Ms. Gabbard, do you still support providing individuals who have access to top secret information with the ability to make their own decisions regarding whether that information should be publicly disclosed, even though disclosure may cause tremendous harm to our country or our allies?
Senator, we cannot and should not have individual vigilantes within the intelligence community making their own decisions about how and where and when to expose our nation's secrets. The intent of the legislation that you have pointed out was pointed towards ensuring due process for those who are charged under the Espionage Act in a court of law. This is a law that has been abused in some cases and used for political purposes. President Obama charged more people under the Espionage Act than all other presidents combined. If confirmed as the Director of National Intelligence, my sole focus and goal would be our nation's security, which includes ensuring the security of our nation's secrets. And I would work to make sure that we don't have any disclosures or vigilantes taking it upon themselves. There are numerous legal paths that will protect this information for those who feel they have concerns. And I look forward to working with you and this committee on making sure that those protections are known by every single person in the workforce and effectively implemented.
So there was something that she said there that I thought was very interesting, what more people need to pay attention to is about some of the things that happened under Barack Obama's administration, which people kind of just seem to forget about because it's been so many years ago. But espionage, right? Now, that's a really dangerous thing. This is one of the things that we pointed to about Julian Assange. And we were saying, like, of course, free Julian Assange, like we cannot have a journalist, go down for something like that, go down for espionage, because again, that could affect all of these other journalists, right? The ones that are not talking heads for the State Department. And I think that's important that she said that, because it is a reminder to people, because as much as we do point fingers at what Donald Trump has done or what Donald Trump is doing, I think it is important for people to remember a lot of the freedoms that were taken away under Barack Obama's presidency too, which oftentimes is not stated. Right. So just keep that in mind. We have a little bit more I want to show here.
You do not support allowing individuals to make their own decisions without authorization to disclose secret information, classified information.
Yes, and I believe we have the legal structure in place for those who have concerns to address them.
As you know, there has been speculation in the press that you met with Hezbollah, a terrorist organization affiliated with Iran. Have you ever knowingly met with any members, leaders, or affiliates of Hezbollah?
No, and it is an absurd accusation.
It was really weird that they used that against Tulsi, because we all know just how pro-Israel Tulsi is. We all know, again, I've called this out multiple times, the Islamophobia that has come from her, the way that she has talked about the Palestinian people. And she said, give Israel everything they need, go in now, take them out, yada, yada, etc. She's been one of the most vocal pro-Israel people. She has spoken at AIPAC conferences. She continues to do that even more today. So I don't know why Susan Collins even thought that one of her, of all people, right? Like neither her or RFK, like, would you think about asking them that or even believe that? Because they're staunch Zionists. So that one really threw me for a loop. She throwing in all kind of things, It's like, you guys want to mention Assad? It's like, oh, she already mentioned Assad in her opening statement, so let's throw in the Hezbollah thing too. Like, just throwing in all types of things.
Let me ask you one final question in the short time we have left. With Hamas, ISIS-K, the Houthis, all the Iranian proxies in Syria and Iraq, Yemen, and Al-Qaeda, all posing general resurgences in the Middle East, Africa, and Central Asia. I'm alarmed at the lack of focus by the IC on this threat to our safety. We don't want to have to call you back to this room after a terrorist attack and ask, how did the IC miss this? Great power competition, China, Russia, definitely pose threats to our country, but the terrorist threat is arguably the most imminent threat, according to former FBI Director Chris Wray. If confirmed, what would be your strategy to refocus the IC on the terrorist threat to our country and to Americans abroad?
This woman cannot be this unintelligent. She cannot be this unintelligent. I can understand if instead of Tulsi Gabbard sitting in that chair, if it was someone who was, pro-Gaza, pro-Palestinian, but Tulsi is the exact opposite of that. So the way that Susan Collins kind of framed that, almost as though if she has this impression that Tulsi Gabbard is pro-Palestinian or pro for the Houthis or whatever, I think she sees all these groups as one thing when they're not all one thing. It's almost like Susan Collins thinks that because Tulsi Gabbard said the things that she said about Assad and Syria, that Tulsi feels the same way about Hamas, which she doesn't, which anyone who's been paying attention from the statements of Tulsi Gabbard, not even since October 7th, but even prior to October 7th, would know that that is ridiculous. She's very pro-Israel, very Israel first. Like, I just say these people can't be this unintelligent. Like, where have you been? How is it that we know more about this and you're sitting right there in Congress? You guys don't know? We're going to need to give Susan Collins a martini.
Thank you, Senator. I agree with your assessment. And this speaks to the need for the ODNI to exist, to redirect those resources, identifying the gaps in intelligence so that we are able to get ahead of these threats instead of coming around after the fact and trying to assess why did we not know about this sooner so that we could have taken action to prevent it.
Thank you.
Senator Wyden.
Thank you very much, Mr.
So those are just some of the discussions that happened during Tulsi Gabbard's hearing. And I just tell you, every time I watch one of these hearings, I just ask myself, is Congress this stupid? Like seriously. And it's not just Tulsi Gabbard. It's not just RFK. It's all of these hearings. I'm just like, do you guys know anything about the people that you're actually talking to or you're trying to confirm at this point in time? It's really interesting, crazy stuff. But I will say this. I think that, again, I don't agree with Tulsi Gabbard on most things, right? But I do think that she is correct, obviously, when she says that NATO provoked the war in Russia. I agree with that, 100% true. I strongly disagree with her when it comes to Israel, Gaza, etc., the Islamophobia, etc., all of those things. I agree with her on Snowden. And I think one point that I do want to mention here, now she does flip-flop. And that's the question that people do need to ask about Tulsi, because I've seen her do this over the years. She'll have one position on the issue and then she'll flip-flop, like she's flip-flopped on the 702. Like, I consider Tulsi Gabbard to be an opportunist. And this is what I've said for a long time. She's doing what she needs to do to get where she want to get in her career. Right now, this is a point I have to address because Aaron Mate pointed this up, and I want people to seriously pay attention to this. Something that Warner said. Warner claims that Snowden fled to Russia. No, the Obama administration canceled his passport as he was seeking asylum elsewhere, forcing him to stay in Russia while in transit there. If Warner doesn't like that Snowden got stranded in Russia, he should take it up with the Obama administration. And I cannot stress this enough. A lot of people get this position incredibly wrong. It's similar to the situation with Tara Reade. When Tara Reade was stuck in Russia, people were saying, oh, she took off and fled to Russia. No, she was there. She was already there promoting her book. Then she received word from Congress that if she came back to the US, she would be detained. And people were leaving that part out. I know, because I've interviewed her about this multiple times. People were leaving that part of the story out. People get this wrong with Edward Snowden too. Everybody's like, he jumped on a plane and he took off and fled to Russia. He was already there. It was Obama who would not let him come back. And he hasn't been back since. So you got to get these things straight. Again, like I said, it points to something, though, that we said earlier, not just about them opening the floodgates, but Jesus Christ, Congress is incredibly stupid. Jeez. Let's go to some of the comments here. Thank you. Thank you, P. Smith. Hemp outlawed in 1937. Oil was discovered. Interesting. Thank you, Naya. U.S. companies will price gouge up 24% of their products, will still be in more demand since they're 1% less than Canadian/Mexican goods at 25% tariffs. Interesting, Naya. Jeanette says, I don't like Tulsi at all, but Bennett was ridiculous. I saw the Bennett part too. It was crazy. We'll be here all night if I showed the whole thing. Joy says, and white highlights her beautiful white strands of hair. And I believe that's a birthmark, probably, right? A friend of mine in college had like a white streak. She said it was her birthmark. Ty said she looks like an X-Men character. Rogue! Rogue! That's what it is. Yes. Red 6, she wears her hair like Rogue from X-Men. Yep. Itole, Snowden would be considered a national hero were it not for the propaganda. Bingo. Bingo. Thank you, a kid. Warner Dems are truly cowards questioning the bravery of Edward Snowden. While Congress did nothing to help Palestinians, Dems seeking to maintain MIC. Good point. Thank you, Roger. Warner, senator from the state of Virginia, MIC, CIA Central. Thanks, Fuzzy Balls. Tulsi refused to call Snowden a traitor. Far more courage than the vast majority of people would in that position. I'll give her that. Thank you, Miss Ritchie. Mark Warner is a fraud. Citizens of Richmond, Virginia are being forced to apply for United Way aid like third world country because he claims Virginia, a wealthy state, can't afford to fix water treatment facility. Lies. And Mark Warner has a lot of money. Thank you, Fuzzy. John Cornyn announced this morning that he was supporting Tulsi. He was figured to be her biggest roadblock. She's got this. Interesting. Where are we going to? A kid. Sabby, the entire House and Senate is paid nearly $200,000 a year, and they are not intelligent for anything that helps Americans, only for becoming richer for themselves. Thank you, Satra. Confirmation. It is performative. They are pretending before the citizens. They think that they are fooling us. They want these Zionists in the cabinet. Oh, Satra. Thank you, Troy. Another plane crash in Philly just happened. I know I keep hearing that. I might have time to get to it if I have chance. And thank you, North Instead. Thank you. Did you see Senator Bennett ask her if Snowden is a traitor? I would have answered no. He did not betray our country. Our government, our own government did. They always do. That's right. Thank you, Eric. Okay. All right. We can do it later. Thanks. Okay. All right, guys, smash the like button and we're moving on to our next story. Yes, we are moving on. Again, they have opened the floodgates, ladies and gentlemen. The floodgates are open. And this story, if you care about free speech, you definitely want to pay attention to because it could happen to you. There's another executive order that Donald Trump just signed that could impact all of us, especially if you are pro-Palestinian. And that is the executive order to cancel student visas of pro-Palestinian protesters / the new anti-Semitism executive order. Now, you have to remember that Congress has been trying to change the definition of anti-Semitism to make it more broad. It also includes that you cannot criticize the state of Israel, the government of Israel, and that in itself is very problematic. So it doesn't matter if you are a student. It doesn't matter if you are a professor at campus. It doesn't matter if you're a YouTube commentator or whatever. This is something that I feel will impact anyone who is pro-Palestinian, because all it takes is for someone to try to snitch. And one of my big concerns is that I have a fear that you are going to see people make up stories about people or snitch on people that they don't like. In other words, ladies and gentlemen, I fear that we are going to enter a form of McCarthyism. Let's get into this clip here, and we'll dive into it, folks.
And staying with the Trump administration, the president has signed an executive order promising action against international college students and others who took part in pro-Palestine protests during Israel's war in Gaza. His aggressive action aims to revoke visas of foreign students and prosecute offenders found to be Hamas sympathizers. The executive order also calls for the deportation of quote-unquote resident aliens who broke the law as part of the anti-Israel protests since the Hamas terror attack on October 7th of 2023.
Jewish students have faced an unrelenting barrage of discrimination, denial of access to campus common areas and facilities, including libraries and classrooms, and intimidation, harassment, and physical threats and assault.
Pause. For everyone who is Black that voted for Trump because you said he's going to look out for Black people, I don't see any executive order coming from Donald Trump to protect Black Americans, do you? Look who gets the protection. What have I tried to say over and over again? I haven't seen Congress. I haven't seen any presidential candidate or president or Congress move as quickly to protect any other group. This in itself should give you pause. This in itself should make you concerned. This in itself should make you wonder, what does your existence really matter here? No other group. None. Let's continue.
Now, under the order, federal agencies have 60 days to produce a report to identify all actions to curb anti-Semitism at U.S. colleges and universities. The order also empowers these educational institutions to monitor and report such students to remove them from the institutions.
So they are asking other students to report those students so that they can be removed from the campus. And if you are suspended from the campus and you're an international student, that means you're going back home because you will no longer be able to use your student visa. That's how it works. I'm telling you guys, it's one of these things where it will start at the universities and then it will spread to the workplace. Next thing you know, you don't work at a university. You could just work. Maybe you work at McDonald's. I don't know. Maybe you work at Starbucks, Burger King, whatever. And maybe you just say something that pisses somebody off and rubs them the wrong way. Next thing you know, you could be out of a job. This is next level McCarthyism. I am seriously trying to sound the alarm about this, folks. It's going to get to the point where you're not going to be able to trust your coworkers, where you're going to tiptoe around everything that you say, where you're going to feel like you're walking on eggshells, just like during McCarthyism. And they are going to have people round people up and snitch on them because this is their other way of silencing speech. Whether you agree with the protest or not, that is besides the point. The point is, this is an attack on free speech. And tomorrow they could be coming for pro-Palestinian protesters. And next thing you know, you won't even be allowed to protest for Gaza, which is probably coming. But then the next week, they're coming for you. Those who remain silent will be a part of the problem. Those who turn their head will be a part of the problem. Those who say, it's not my protest, I'm not involved. Those who turn the other cheek, you will be a part of the problem. It'll only be a matter of time before they come for you as well. And I damn sure know, and I sincerely hope that none of you would snitch on anyone participating in any of these protests.
In addition to identifying relevant authorities to curb or combat anti-Semitism generally required by this section, the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Education, and the Secretary of Homeland Security, in consultation with each other, shall include in their reports recommendations for familiarizing institutions of higher education with the grounds for inadmissibility, so that such institutions may monitor for and report activities by alien students and staff relevant to those grounds, and for ensuring that such reports about aliens lead, as appropriate and consistent with applicable law, to investigations and, if warranted, actions to remove such aliens.
Meanwhile, civil rights activists say President Trump's executive order is likely unconstitutional and paints peaceful protesters as terrorist sympathizers.
The Trump administration's attempt to smear the many Jewish, Muslim, Palestinian, and other college students who protested the Israeli government's genocide in overwhelmingly peaceful ways represents a dishonest, overbroad, and unenforceable attack on both free speech and the humanity of Palestinians, all for the sake of a foreign government. So is the administration's apparent threat to deport any foreign student who merely participated in anti-genocide protests.
So what people again have to understand is that they're changing that definition of anti-Semitism to make it more broad so that you can also say, well, they can say you criticize the state of Israel. So that's also anti-Semitic. And yeah, I'm going to snitch on you. All this protection for another country. So much to the point where they're willing to throw Americans under the bus because of it. But what you have to understand is this is not just about deporting college students who are here on a student visa, about that as well. You also have to understand that Donald Trump did something similar to this before. And I think maybe some people just didn't pay attention to it because this was before, obviously, October 7th happened. But in 2019, during his first presidential term, you have to remember Trump's anti-Semitism executive order. He did one before. Now, this one was a little bit different, right? Because he wasn't trying to like get rid of everybody and all that types of thing. But this part right here, President Trump signed an executive order on Wednesday expanding his administration's interpretation of race and national origin to include Judaism, a move that extends certain civil rights protections to Jews in education settings. So again, Judaism and Zionism is not the same thing. The move is part of the Trump administration's broader efforts to combat what it considers anti-Israel and anti-Semitic movements on college campuses. See, he did this before, but now it's gone a step further. But the order has ignited debate over federal funding, free speech, and views about Israel, and prompted renewed questions about how Jewish people should be classified by the government. Now, they were trying to use the section of the Federal Civil Rights Act of 1964. They were trying to use this, requiring federally funded educational institutions not to discriminate based on national origin. Under this, colleges and universities that support or tolerate anti-Israel movements, the most prominent being BDS, could be under threat, having their funding withheld by the Department of Education. So does everybody remember this from 2019? I feel like it didn't get as much attention because they've been doing this. He's been moving closer and closer towards this. And now you see where we are now. In fact, if we go back to 2019, this was the event where he signed that executive order. And look who's right behind him. Oh, it's the Patriots owner, Robert Kraft. Now, I'm a Patriots fan. I live here. I've been a Patriots fan for a long, long time. But Robert Kraft is an asshole. Never really cared for him. You have the owner of a football team right here behind Donald Trump. And there's Jared Kushner, whoever the hell he is, that weird looking dude. You got Jared, and then you have Ivana here. Listen to this. 2019, just a reminder.
But today we're taking another historic action. In just a few moments, I'll sign an executive order to combat anti-Semitism. This action makes clear that Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, which prohibits the federal funding of universities and other institutions that engage in discrimination, applies to institutions that traffic in anti-Semitic hate. So this is a very powerful document that we're signing today, and it's been a very big story over the last number of days when they heard. As you know, they had almost universal support in Congress, and yet they didn't get it done. And this has gone on for years and years. They've almost had universal support, but there was always a roadblock. But this year, there's no roadblock because I'm doing it myself. It's much easier. And we have support from many in Congress. This is our message to universities. If you want to accept the tremendous amount of federal dollars that you get every year, you must reject anti-Semitism. It's very simple.
So again, just a brief look there, that was 2019. So again, I think a lot of people forget that he did that during his first term against BDS. Now, don't get me wrong, the Democrats ain't no fan of BDS either. And this is another part of the problem where the Democratic Party has not stepped up to the plate, of course, because they're both pro-Israel. And this is how we end up with someone like Trump. And this is how we end up down the road that we're in. This is a free speech issue. And like I said before, I don't see an executive order to protect African Americans. Now, let's remember during Donald Trump's first presidency, did you guys see Trump issue any type of executive order to protect Black Americans when Black people were protesting out in the streets against police brutality? Nope. But you know what makes it worse? Joe Biden didn't want to do anything to really protect us either. He gave more money to the police. This is how you end up with another Donald Trump back in office. This is how you get back there, because the Democrats had that opportunity to say, okay, this is where he went wrong on this issue. We're going to fix it. But they can't do that because they're paid by the same freaking donors and they both support the police state. And none of the donors want the Black community to be protected. Oh, no, I didn't say that. But I did. None of these donors want the Black community to be protected. You can tell them I said it. We're not important to them. If anything, they're trying to get rid of some of us. We don't make enough money. We don't give them anything. We don't own enough businesses. We don't have enough wealth. If anything, the donor class is trying to get rid of Black Americans. And if that's the case, then that'll tell you right there why the politicians really put us last on their list, or we're not on the paper at all, boo. But there's good news to go along with this. I thought this was really good news today because something else is happening. 9 countries launch legal action against Israel over Gaza war. They're called the Hague Group. It's made up of 9 countries. Let's get into this. This could be the answer. I don't know. I told you got to start suing people. I really do think this is what it's going to come down to. Delegations from 9 countries gathered in The Hague on Friday, that was today, unveiled coordinated legal, economic, and diplomatic measures aimed at holding Israel accountable for its violations of international law amid mounting threats against the ICC. In response to pressure from U.S. Congress, which has sought to sanction the ICC, there are 9 countries: Belize, Bolivia, Chile, Colombia, Honduras, Namibia, Senegal, South Africa, and Malaysia are forming a coalition known as the Hague Group to defend the legitimacy of international legal institutions and their rulings. Oh, snap. And one of the things that they mentioned here, this is good. I wish this would have happened sooner, but I'm glad it is happening. So one of the things that they said here is that the Hague Group was born out of necessity. It goes on to say, one of the things that they're fighting against, I wanted to put this down here, make sure I'm going to the right part. Sorry. They express its solidarity with the Palestinians by backing the formation of a Palestinian state. So this is new, a new coalition here. I think it's great. You have those 9 countries. Hopefully other countries can join as well. And there's one more part here. I just want to make sure I showed every part. Yeah. So that's new news. Their mission is to make sure that Israel does not continue to have the occupation. So that's one of the big ones that they're focused on. It says that they are going to have international pressure for sanctions and an arms embargo against Israel until the genocide ends. Palestinian national sovereignty and self-determination are secured, and an independent Palestinian state with East Jerusalem as its capital be established. So please pass on that news to your friends, guys. This is big news and it's new. 9 countries launch legal action against Israel over the Gaza war. But what do you do about the ignorance, right? Like, I want you to hear what this gentleman said here when he's talking about ignorance versus arrogance. And I thought this was pretty cool.
Look, Muslims need to understand when you're dealing with Western kuffar, you're not actually dealing with ignorance. There's a misunderstanding on our part. You're dealing with arrogance, not ignorance. Ignorance can be remedied by information. It can be remedied by education and so forth. You can teach ignorant people, but you can't teach arrogant people. Arrogant people cannot learn. They can't learn anything until they've been humiliated. And in fact, arrogance is always just the precursor to humiliation. And I think that that's what's happening right now with the West. They're kicking and screaming. You know, the West is kicking and screaming right now against the humbling process that's taking place before our eyes. Look.
I thought that was an interesting point there and a good way to end that segment. Is like, you can, teach ignorance, but you can't teach those that are arrogant. We'll have to stay tuned, and I'll continue to follow this, you guys, because again, I do consider this to be a free speech issue. And regardless if you agree with the protest or not, if you agree with free speech, I think you need to be concerned. Yeah, I saw that too. He does have a Malcolm kind of vibe, so I'll put that in the chat. Let's go to the comments here and we'll get to the next story. Eric, we can go ahead to part 2. Thank you. Okay, Roger. Oil was discovered in the 1800s. Ohio, JD, RO Standard Oil. Thank you, Kiara. Keep up the good work. Thank you. Bree, I don't agree with this executive order, but I'm not surprised he signed the bill. Also, this is why I don't talk at work. Free speech has been dead. And that's unfortunate to hear, Wow. Alka says, I just at work a MEX FLT and just brought in a bunch of chemical among other things. Most passenger flights bring in the imports. Interesting. Thank you, Jay. This is Miriam Adelson in action. There you go. Right there said, Sabby, you're from Bmore. You should be a Ravens fan. Nope. Let me explain what happened. So my parents, I was born in Bmore. I lived in all these different places though, because we were military. We moved around. But when I was born, there wasn't a football team in Baltimore. The Baltimore Colts left in the middle of the night. This is the way my dad explained the story. In the middle of the night, they left and took off. And so Baltimore didn't have a football team. The Ravens came later. I was already fans of other people. You know what I mean? But I hear you. Carol says, oh, thank you for the super sticker. Thank you, Courtney. So basically, this will start from the universities and on to the workplace, then eventually entertainment, which means that nobody will be able to beef with Drake's soft ass. Exactly. So, Courtney, you know where I'm going with this. Courtney knows. Thank you, Jasmine. Will this be the decade of suing the oppressor? Maybe. Maybe. Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Eric. Thank you for letting me know about this. So it was brought to my attention that there has been another plane crash, this one in Philadelphia. Let's go ahead and bring this up here. This is crazy. Breaking news. Plane with 6 aboard crashes in Philadelphia, setting homes ablaze and unleashing a fireball. Holy crap. Eric, is this a video? Can I play this? Does it play? Nope, it doesn't play. Okay, well, I guess I'll just read on here. It says a medical transport jet with a child patient and 5 others aboard crashed into a Philadelphia neighborhood shortly after takeoff on Friday evening, exploding into a fireball that engulfed several homes. What in the hell? Eric, you try to play it. It doesn't let me play anything. Oh, here we go. Oh my God. What the? Oh my God. This is a different angle. What? This is in Philly, you guys. There's houses there. Oh. Let's get back to the article because there are houses there. It says that Jet Rescue Air Ambulance said the patient and another passenger were on board along with 4 crew members. We cannot confirm any survivors, the company said in a statement. Our immediate concern is for the patient's family, our personnel, their families, and other victims that may have been hurt on the ground. Mayor Sherelle Parker said Friday night at a news conference that information on fatalities wasn't immediately known, but several homes and vehicles have been damaged. This is still an active scene under investigation. The crash came just 2 days after the deadliest U.S. air disaster in a generation. On Wednesday night, an American Airlines, so we talked about what happened to the DC crash. Over Philadelphia, a doorbell camera captured footage of the plane plunging in a streak of white and exploding as it hit the ground near a shopping mall on the major roadway. All we heard was a loud roar and didn't know where it was coming from. We just turned around and saw the big plume. Now that's Jim, who's the owner of the doorbell. What is going on? This is the second plane this week that's crashed. Now I think this one was a small plane because it said a transporter jet. What is going on? I don't know. Is this a staffing issue as well? It says the crash happened less than 3 miles from Northeast Philadelphia Airport, which primarily serves business jets and charter flights. So smaller flight here. The plane, a Learjet 55, quickly disappeared from radar after taking off from the airport at 6:06 p.m. and climbing to an altitude of 1,600 feet. It was en route to Springfield, Missouri, and registered to a company operating as Med Jets, according to the flight tracking website Flight Aware. What do you mean it disappeared? What do they mean? What is happening here? Like, I just can't. President Trump posted on social media platform Truth Social It was so sad to see the crash. Most innocent souls lost. Our people are totally engaged. Governor Shapiro said he is offering all Commonwealth resources as they respond to the small private plane crash in Northeast Philly. This is insane, you guys. And it goes on to say here, the plane crashed in a busy intersection near Roosevelt Mall, an outdoor shopping center in the densely populated neighborhood of Ronhurst. Not sure where that's located, but it says one cell phone video taken by a witness moment after the plane crash showed a chaotic scene with debris scattered across the intersection. A wall of orange glowed just beyond the intersection as a plume of black smoke quickly rose into the sky and sirens blared. Jesus Christ, what is happening? This is scary, you guys. Like, we still don't have all the names of the passengers from the DC flight yet. And now you have, like, this, and I know, again, it's a small plane, but still, people died. I don't care if it's 2 people, 3 people, you know, people died. How did this happen? What do they mean it disappeared? Somebody explain this to me. What do you mean it disappeared? Michael Schiavone, 37, was sitting at his home in Mayfair. That's a nearby neighborhood on Friday when he heard a loud bang and his house shook. He said it felt like a mini earthquake. And when he checked his home security camera footage, he said it looked like a missile was coming down. He said it looked like a missile was coming down. He said it looked like a missile was coming down. What is going on? So I'm guessing a tiny plane, small plane, coming down fast. Pew! Maybe it would look that way to him. I don't know. But this is terrifying. There was a large explosion, so I thought we were under attack for a second. Yo, dude. The plane owner, Jet Rescue, provides global air ambulance services. The company is based in Mexico. It flew Baseball Hall of Famer David Ortiz to Boston after he was shot in the Dominican Republic. I remember this. That was in 2019, and was involved in transporting patients critically ill with the Rona. The FAA said the National Transportation Safety Board will lead the investigation. Guys, I'm scared. Crazy Puppet said he made assumptions based on the video. Yeah, I guess you can say that. I don't know, man. That was scary. I'm scared. What is happening? Sabby not likey. I don't like planes anyway. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm one of those people, like, I don't like planes anyway. And then it's just planes just crashing 2 in 1 week. Jeez. 6 people aboard. You have more grieving families, you guys. More ones. All right, let's bring in those Rockfin comments. That's really scary. I don't know, man. I'm scared. Sabby don't like. Thank you for the Rockfin, Roger. We should find out if Biden repealed Trump's 2019 EO. So if the government is not giving us any money, then we're going to have to pry it from their hands, just like Taxpayers Against Genocide is launching lawsuits to do that, which I see as a counter to Trump's executive order. I say Black people follow suit and copy Cynthia Brown and launch a CBI amendment to abolish. QIT applies to all government agencies, not just the police. qualified immunity. Once abolished, we get our money from suing the crap out of these government agencies for violating our First, Second, Fourth, Sixth, Eighth, 14th, 16th, 15th, and 24th Amendment rights. I don't mean to jump the gun, but with those planes, were those planes made by Boeing? I don't know. That's a good question. Regardless, Boeing needs to either be nationalized or corporatized. I agree. I don't know what's going on, you guys, but that's scary. Oh my gosh. Let's go to some of the comments here. Jesus Christ. Thank you, Marvin. Great stream, interesting topics. KY prices go up. LOL. KY jelly. Thank you, Satra. Have you heard of Hillman Talk University? I have not. And thank you, Crazy Puppet, who's been a member for 8 months. I have flights coming up soon. Planes fall just like boats sink. In recent history, how many boats have sunken? That's a good point. Yeah, I don't mean to alarm anybody. I just freak out. Like, that's scary. The Adventures of Mr. Kid Mister says they're going to have to merge airlines just to fix the Boeing issue. Wow. Interesting. Yes, Lewis. Sabby, did you talk about the Boeing person who was killed right before testifying? Yes, I did. I sure did. Crazy stuff, man. Crazy stuff. All right. We're going to something maybe not so crazy, but might make you laugh. Smash the like button. Thank you. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share. And we're going to something a little bit different, folks. We're going to switch things up a little bit. So it appears that after his H-1B visa rant, Vivek Ramaswamy is back in the spotlight. That's right. He was on The Breakfast Club with Charlamagne the God once again, only to be questioned about what happened with his position with Doge. Remember, Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk were supposed to be a part of Doge in Trump's administration. And then Vivek Ramaswamy went on to this wild anti-Saved by the Bell American culture rant. And in a long story short, kind of told white people they didn't know how to raise their kids. Didn't go over too well. So there was like this split among MAGA where one side of MAGA was like, no, HB1 visas hurt American jobs, which is true. We've been trying to tell people this on the show, right? And it's exploitation. It's companies getting cheaper labor because they pay them less instead of hiring people who are already here first and paying us what you should pay us. They just want the cheap labor. That's how it works, right? So there's that. And Vivek was pretty quiet. Like after a while, he got attacked and slammed and body slammed. If we were watching wrestling, I would say that literally somebody came off the tightrope and knocked him the fuck out. And he was really quiet after that. And now he's back. So Charlamagne did ask a question that I probably would have asked him myself. What happened, Vivek? What happened?
Do you think you were pushed out of Doge because Trump rolled back the DEI initiatives?
No, to the contrary. And, I would say, just to be super clear about it, I have no problem with, framing or whatever. Mm-hmm. It was really just an actual mutual decision where you look at, here was one vision on approach. Here's a different vision on an approach. That's great. There's no right or wrong answer. With a technology-driven approach and a technology-first approach, there's no better person than Elon to run with that. With a constitutional law focus, with a legislation focus, some of the areas I was focused on, probably the right place to do it is elected office.
Let me tell you guys something. He lied. So he is given the professional response, right? That's the response that you give when you still want to remain in good graces with people and you still want to continue on in your career in politics, which from what I understand, he is now going to run for governor of Ohio. Interesting choice. I don't know. That's something that he wants to do. So he's pushing back and saying it was a mutual decision. Really? There just happened to be a mutual decision that you should not be a part of Doge right after you told all these white people they didn't know how to raise their kids. Imagine that, right? That is what Vivek is saying, but I have different information that I would like to share. But Charlamagne wasn't buying it. So Charlamagne pushed back. And I've been kind of hard on Charlamagne sometimes because I felt like he goes a little too easy. He's a little too soft on these presidential candidates. And Vivek was a former presidential candidate. I feel like he's a little too soft with them and not asking them the questions that he should ask. And then I think a lot of that has to do with maintaining access in particular. But he pushed back here. Listen to this.
So we all agreed on that. And I think that that's actually a good thing where we're actually able to collaborate, divide, and conquer.
I hear you, Vivek.
Yeah,
I don't believe you.
Oh, that's fair
but
enough.
I think you either got pushed out or you know that it's going to implode. I think that you know Elon is going to crash and burn it, and you're a smart guy, and you said, you know what? Let me get out of Dodge and go do my Governor of Ohio thing.
So look,
So we got to appreciate that Charlamagne said to his face that he doesn't believe him. And I agree. Like, I don't believe him either. We don't believe you, Vivek. We know you're trying to save face.
Exactly. I knew that the right step for me in the long run is elected office and to pursue the vision that we're talking about here, to actually translate that to action in my own terms. That's what I've been called to do. It was clear that I could not do that and serve on Doge at the same time. Even for logistical reasons, it came to be in the government rather than an outside body. I was proud to be able to spend the first couple of months offering my contributions and setting it in the right direction. With its focus now, with its digital technology focus, no better person to do that than Elon in the way that he's going to lead it. And I am hopeful that there's going to be a lot of streamlining of government bureaucracy that comes out of that. And I'm pursuing my next steps at the state level.
Are they going to endorse you? Is Elon going to endorse you? Is Trump going to endorse you?
We're all on very good terms. And so I wouldn't want to speak for anybody else, but I will say that they're very supportive of the decision that I made to pursue as my next step.
You got it.
The decision that he made, did he really make that decision? Let's see. You know, Charlamagne's not buying it. Look at the look on the expression that he had on his face. So according to Politico, that's not the case. According to Politico, he didn't make this decision, right? So it goes on to say here, everyone wants him out. How Elon Musk helped boot Ramaswamy from Doge. In other words, Vivek, you got knocked out of Dodge from Doge. This picture to me says, please clap. I'm sorry. Let me continue. Oh my God. Okay. So it goes on here to say that Musk, the tech tycoon and Donald Trump confidant, made it known that he wanted Ramaswamy out of Doge in recent days. This is according to 3 people familiar with Musk references who, like others for this article, were granted anonymity to discuss them. An ill-received holiday rant on X by Vivek Ramaswamy about H-1B visas apparently hastened his demise. Just 69 days after Trump announced the team, Vivek is now leaving Doge and planning to announce a run for Ohio governor next week. Musk's ability to ice out Ramaswamy, who for a variety of reasons had irked some Republicans in Trump's circle, is the latest sign of his influence in the incoming administration. So pay attention to that, right? Elon has more money than Vivek. Apparently, they're saying that Vivek, they said irked. I'm going to say he got on people's nerves. Vivek rubbed people the wrong way. They got tired of Vivek. That's what it sounds like to me. You know, Ramaswamy just burned through the bridges and he finally burned Elon, said a Republican strategist close to Trump's advisors. Everyone wants him out of Mar-a-Lago, out of DC. Oh, they said, look, everyone wants him out of Mar-a-Lago, out of DC. They said, look here, bud, you ain't got to go home, but you got to get the hell up out of here. That away. He goes on to say one main reason for some Republicans' frustration with Ramaswamy was the post that he made on X discussing the H-1B visas. They wanted him out before the tweet, but kicked him to the curb when that came out. So it sounds like to me that was the final straw. So everyone see this? They were already having problems with Vivek before that tweet. And the moment he made that tweet, that's when they said, you've got to, that's it. That was the nail in the coffin. That's what it sounds like. A person close to Doge said Musk did not think it was feasible for him to campaign for office while working on Doge. Yeah, you weren't talking about that at the time either. It goes on to say Ramaswamy maintained to confidants as late as Saturday evening that he was actively involved in Doge, saying he was at work writing executive orders, according to 6 people who had spoken with him. But a person familiar with the arrangement said he had done almost no Doge related work since early December. Oh my God. Okay. As recently as last week, Ramaswamy was hoping to achieve some early wins at Doge before leaving to pursue a gubernatorial bid. Now Ramaswamy and his allies are laboring to put a positive spin on his departure, coming just as Trump takes office. Ramaswamy declined to comment about perceived tensions with Elon Musk. A person familiar with Ramaswamy's thinking said they are now on good terms and that the reality is that it wasn't possible to run for governor and co-lead Doge both at once. So first of all, let me call BS right. Because Vivek Ramaswamy was not trying to run for governor prior to all this mess. This is something that he was, get out of Doge, go do something else. Get out of here. Okay, I'll go run for governor then. Even Hill Republicans have joined the Ramaswamy bashing. A cheeky meme portraying Musk erasing Ramaswamy's from history was privately shared by junior staff in the House Speaker Mike Johnson's office. A person familiar with the meme said, it goes on to say it depicted Musk as Joseph Stalin and Ramaswamy as the chief of the Soviet secret police who was later executed and removed from the photos. Wow. 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 Yeah. So Vivek is saying what he said to Charlamagne the God, but according to Politico, they wanted Vivek out and they actually were irritated with Vivek Ramaswamy prior to the H-1B visa rant discussion. Now, there's one more thing I want to show you about this, because the thing that really drove me crazy about Vivek Ramaswamy was these lies that he was continuing to tell. I told you, this guy, again, the floodgate is open, right? So they opened the floodgates on Vivek Ramaswamy and they showed you, we don't really like you like that. We're not feeling you. We are aggravated by you. Maybe you talk a little too much, okay? You're a little too loud out there in these streets. And so I want to take you back to last year when Vivek Ramaswamy was also on the Breakfast Club. The lies that he was trying to tell about how his family came from nothing. This, I told you, Vivek Ramaswamy is a showman. And I think this is Officer Tatum. Officer Tatum clipped this. Watch this.
Vivek out here toasting y'all, boy.
Britain colonized where my grandparents lived as well. But I think that I don't do well by seeing myself as a victim of the white man, because actually Great Britain happened to have colonized where my grandparents were actually colonized.
That's moving the goalpost. We talking about what benefited your parents when they got here.
That's right.
What benefited all of us is the fact that we have a free country where anybody is free to achieve what they want. I don't know they came to this country with not a lot of money. What benefited them was hard work and dedication. My dad faced layoffs when he was growing up at GE. Right. He went to law school at night to be able to keep his job. What did that teach me?
Affirmative action benefited him?
I don't think affirmative action benefited him. Absolutely not. I think hard work and dedication benefited him. And that's part of what I want to share with all Americans. I want to make this the country where no matter who you are and what your skin color is, you get ahead with your own hard work and commitment and dedication. That you get ahead not on the color of your skin, but the content of your character.
He has to go, guys.
And that's what I want for America.
And Officer Tatum, I don't agree with you, but I disagree here, and I want to show you why. he was going on this tirade to make it seem like his parents came here with nothing, but his parents already came here with college degrees. Now he says that his dad got laid off. I believe these things happen. Welcome to America. People get laid off, right? So his dad got laid off, and he said that his dad, went to law school at night. How'd he pay to go to law school? Where'd the money come from to go to law school? So you see, let me show you something, right? Because what Vivek tried to do, this is why I told you not to trust this guy. What he tried to do is he tried to make it seem like, again, he's trying to sell a product, right? He's trying to, basically, you're selling your campaign, trying to sell your campaign to people. He tried to make it seem like his family came here with nothing, which he continued to say over and over. And I told you that was not true. And I'll show you in just a second. And that they worked hard, and that's how they got to be where they are. But he leaves out something very important. And by the way, this quick Google search, you can find this information. Check this out. Because he realized people not going to look this up. So about the parents, his parents graduated, his dad graduated from the National Institute of Technology, Calicut, worked as an engineer for General Electric, while his mother was a graduate of Mysore Medical College and Research Institute, worked as a geriatric psychiatrist. So let me pause here for a second. They had college degrees. Now, maybe to Vivek, that may be nothing, but for a lot of us Americans, a lot of people will never get the opportunity to go to college just because they can't afford it. So that's not a nothing. So he's like, oh, they just worked hard. No. They didn't just work hard. Because you also have to understand the reason why his parents, why they were able to come here, is because of the work that was done during the civil rights movement. So people have to understand, when people were able to immigrate to the United States, this is because of the work that was done during the civil rights movement. So we made it better for you and easier for you. So stop it with they just worked hard and did a good job. And another thing I want to debunk, and we got to show this too. This part right here. So they just worked hard, right? It says his parents immigrated from Palakkad district in Kerala, where the family had an ancestral home in a traditional agraham in the town of Vakancherry, right? Well, if you hover over what this means, because I was curious, an agraham or agrahara was a grant of land and royal income from it, typically by a king or a noble family in India for religious purposes, particularly to Brahmins to maintain temples in that land or a pilgrimage site and to sustain their families. So this is the part that he leaves out. This is what I keep trying to explain to people. He came from the highest caste system. So I don't want to hear that they worked hard, because you were already ahead. Already ahead. He leaves that part out, but that's on purpose. His point there is to mislead. So that's what I want people to understand. Yeah, Adventure said a land grant, right? So you see what I mean? Your parents already had something. My parents didn't get a land grant. My grandparents didn't get a land grant. Did your grandparents get a land grant? So think about those things. So now what is happening is that Vivek is making this pivot to, I'm going to run for governor of Ohio. And I think that was a convenient excuse as to excuse his way out of Doge and be like, yeah, well, I can't run for governor and do that at the same time. No, people found you annoying. And you told people that Zach and Slater were problematic. And I don't think you understand how Americans feel about Zach and Slater, okay? You're talking about one of the biggest shows that was on during that time. So there's that. I think you got a little too comfy. Ann Coulter told Vivek Ramaswamy to his face she would never vote for him because he is Indian. And he sat there and smiled. Anything to try to fit in. He tried to do whatever he can to try to fit in because, again, he saw that as the closest thing as being to the American dream. So people do have to understand that. So you come over here, his parents came over here, and he said one of them wasn't legal when they got here. That's a whole other story. But he's born here, and then now you want to turn around and point your finger at Americans and say, we're doing everything wrong. Well, if we're doing everything wrong, and your family came from the Brahmin caste, and they had this land grant, why didn't they try to do everything right there in India? So you pissed people off, Vivek. You made people mad. More importantly, you pissed off people who were Trump supporters. And that's why you're not in Doge. And the governor thing of Ohio is just convenient, I think. And I think it'll be really interesting that Vivek Ramaswamy might see just how some people in Ohio really feel about him during this gubernatorial race. Sometimes it'll be, I've said this before, this whole thing about people of color. Sometimes it'll be people of color, other people of color who spend the most time trying to bash Black people. You guys just need to work harder. You just need to do this. Yeah, let's just leave out the fact that my parents came here with my parents came from a high caste system. Get out of here. So he's out of Doge. Oh my God. Oh my gosh. I hear you. Beezy said Vivek hates Black Americans. It's just like, dude, and during his campaign, it's like he had this obsession like, well, this is the thing. Black people, and like they did Black people and Black people this. And I was like, dude, stop. Stop. You want nothing to do with Black people. Oh, the comments are funny. Bryce said he about to dodge those questions. Oh my God. Okay. Yeah, he's out. Okay. And let's go to some of the comments and we'll go to the next. We have one more story. Yeah, one more story. Oh, this one's interesting. Thank you, the crazy puppet. Planes are good, very reliable if used and maintained correctly. Most negative outcomes from takeoffs are due to human errors, like exponential margin, till Boeing equalized that. Interesting. Oh my God. Thanks, Roger. Remember, Vivek announced his candidacy for Ohio governor. That's right. The Adventure says, Governor of Ohio, why does he need that job? That is a good question. Why you got to do that? Pine says, if you talk S about Zach and Screech, then you will get the big bye-bye from them. And they are everywhere, bruh. Thank you for the super sticker regime. And thanks, Crazy Puppet. Vivek fell after DEI balloons started popping. Damn. Okay, let's go to Roger, I think. Yeah, we'll go to Roger and then get to the last part. I'm going to do some of these bangs. Thank you, Roger. Sab, the sad fact is that Vivek says out loud what a lot of non-white, non-freedmen immigrants think of us when they come here. The stereotype of the lazy Black American that just complains about oppression, looking for a handout as if we're never built things without government help, as if our independent economic communities weren't destroyed by Ike's interstate highway system, eminent domain. Even Gandhi was racist. Everyone around the world loves our culture, our music, our swag, our style, our dance, but they want our rhythm, but they don't want our blues. And you got a point. They do not want the bluesy blues. Okay. All right. If you haven't done so, smash the like, guys. I don't know how many people smash the like. Thank you. And we're moving on to the final story. So let me grab my notes. I have notes for this one because I want to make sure. Okay. Cool. Got my notes. Based. Every now and then I like to do these deep dive segments. So I've done one recently about Gloria Steinem. A lot of people tended to like that one. I'm not the only one that talked about Gloria Steinem, but I think I took a different perspective with it. I've done a deep dive about why there's no such thing as a self-made billionaire. And now it's time that I do one about Clive Davis. Clive Davis, music producer, founder of Arista Records. We have to dive into Clive. There are probably a number of things that you've heard about Clive Davis over the years, but you may not know about this one, right? What I'm going to talk about tonight. First and foremost, I want you to understand that the basis of this conversation is about exploitation. And it's not just Clive Davis at the end of the day, but he's the one we're talking about tonight. There were some things about Clive Davis that was just a little weird. Some things that he did that gave me pause. I don't know, like this moment. After Whitney Houston died, the decision that Clive Davis made to continue on with a pre-Grammy party, I thought that was kind of weird. Even Shaka Khan thought it was kind of weird. She spoke to Piers Morgan about this. Remember this?
You were, I think, going to go to the Clive Davis party.
Yes.
It was a surreal event where Whitney's body was still in the hotel, and there was this sort of party where apparently half the room were in tears, the other half were kind of partying. What did you feel about that?
I thought that was complete insanity. And knowing Whitney, I don't believe that she would have said, the show must go on. She was the kind of woman that was to stop everything. I'm not going to be there. You know, I don't know what could motivate a person to have a party in a building where the person whose life he had influenced so enormously and whose life had been affected by her. So they were like, I don't understand how that party
I had Clive Davis by pure chance in here on Friday night with Jennifer Hudson, and he obviously worshipped Whitney, and I think he must have gone through agony when he heard this news, knowing it was 2 or 3 hours till this event.
Right.
And I think he took the decision to turn it into a tribute to her. And I understand that. I mean, he obviously was wrestling with the right thing to do.
That would have been right if it really was a true tribute, and and a true tribute, might have been a truer, a more honest tribute in my opinion, would have been maybe call everybody together, let's say a prayer, and let's eat dinner and go home. I couldn't get dressed. I was supposed to go to the party. I just got off a plane from Miami at about 5:30. As soon as I hit the tarmac, I found out, I heard, and I couldn't put on makeup. I couldn't get dressed. I couldn't do anything. I was paralyzed. I couldn't do anything.
Couldn't do anything, but Clive went on with the party. Just thought that was a little bit weird. Just seemed like Clive just wanted to, I don't know. Seemed like he just wanted to continue to find ways to make money, right? I don't know. That's what it seemed like to me. And there was something else too. That's one example. But there was something that Suge Knight said, which I think the more I keep finding out, I think people at some point are going to have to owe Suge Knight an apology. Suge Knight, owner of Death Row Records. There was something else that he said about Clive Davis. Now, of course, Suge Knight was talking about the whole Diddy situation at the time. I know people are going to laugh because it's page 6, but this was actually, the conversation was on News Nation. I just had difficulty finding that video again. But, Suge Knight's been talking a bit, and he said something here that I think more people need to pay attention to. I'll see if I can make it bigger. I don't know where it went now. Or maybe it did go bigger. Okay. The highlighted part here. Suge Knight The convicted felon went on to allege that Clive Davis, Russell Simmons, and Andre Harrell used alcohol, drugs to compromise Sean Puffy Combs' manhood. Allegedly. Davis, Simmons, and Harrell have never been charged with allegations made by Knight. But just because you haven't been charged doesn't mean these things didn't happen. The spokesperson added that Clive is a mentor to artists, and in keeping with this, never ever condoned any such inappropriate behavior. So there have been many things that have been said about Clive Davis, but I would think if anyone would know, it probably would be Suge Knight, right? I think Suge knows some more things too, you know. So there's that. People have to remember Clive Davis was Diddy's boss. Just keep that in mind. So these are allegedly, don't know for sure. We don't know if Diddy's going to talk or not, but I want to ask you a question. I just found it pretty interesting that the feds came after Diddy, but they ain't come after nobody else around him. They ain't come after Clive Davis. Really? Or they didn't raid Clive Davis's house. Those are two examples that I said there's some weird things about Clive Davis. But I did not know about this one. A couple nights ago, I watched this. I finally watched it. I watched the biopic, and then after that, I watched the new documentary of what happened to Milli Vanilli. Rob is no longer alive, but Fab is still alive. And in this new documentary, which I can't show on here, you get to hear from other people, not just Fab, but the people who worked at Arista Records, and they seem to have a different perception of how things went down. While everyone pointed their fingers at Rob and Fab, a lot of us did not know the full story. I was a kid when Milli Vanilli came out, but I remember the songs. We were just bumping and dancing to Girl, You Know It's True. And it was everywhere. It was everywhere. Girl, You Know It's True. Blame It on the Rain. Girl, I'm going to Miss You. We'll talk about where the song actually came from in a minute. But the part that I did not know about, which is mentioned in the new documentary, is that Clive Davis is also guilty. I want to take you back to the issue with the contract. Now, this is an interview. I don't know if you saw this. It was a couple years ago. This is Fab, who was a part of Milli Vanilli. At this time, he was having an interview with Pat from PBD podcast. I just want you to hear what he says about the contract, and then I'll get into the background.
When we signed those papers, there was no attorneys, there was no managers, there was no support system.
Nothing.
We were just like eager beaver. Where? How high should I jump?
Got it. This is when you got $1,500.
That's right.
Is it $1,500 a piece or $1,500 total?
I can't recall. Maybe a piece.
Okay.
So
nothing crazy. Nothing
nothing
just enough
crazy.
to maybe like get a.
Just enough to go get some clothes, work on that hair. You know, because we had braids.
Did he suggest you go work on the hair?
No. That was
so
all.
the hair is all you and Rob.
Yeah.
Okay, you thought about that
Yeah,
because
we
everybody
thought about
wanted to have a unique look, so you wanted to have a unique look. So
That's right. That's right.
Got it. So and then he comes, you talk. Rob is furious. Him and Frank go at it, and then at what point? So he's already told them what he has in mind. Here's a song. I'm gonna get the voice. You guys will be the performers. You'll be the face, but someone's gonna be singing
right,
it.
yeah.
So he told that to Rob.
Yeah, in a not
Paraphrasing,
all,
like,
paraphrasing,
okay.
but he just told him, listen, you guys be the face.
That's it.
Yeah, you know.
So let's backtrack here and explain how things did transpire. So again, this is Fab. He was a part of the duo Milli Vanilli. I'm just going to backtrack a little bit to give you a little bit more context. So Rob and Fab were dancers. At the time, they were dancers in Germany. I believe, if I remember correctly, Fab was from France. Rob was from Germany, but they were, moving around trying to find gigs where they could. But the idea is that they did want to become famous. Like they wanted to become, a band. Like they wanted to really make it. And they were dancers, and dancers aren't paid that much, etc. They were living in a friend's attic or something like that at one point. Like, in other words, they didn't have permanent housing. They said sometimes they didn't have food to eat, etc. But they were trying to do like the artist dream. There was this producer in Germany. His name was Frank Farian. Now, apparently Frank Farian discovered this other group during like the 70s disco era called Boney M, which I honestly had never heard of until I watched this documentary. And now I've been looking up all of Boney M's shit. So apparently Frank Farian discovered them, and Frank Farian said, wow, these guys are amazing. These guys are handsome. And if you go back and look back then, I think a lot of you know, if you're young, maybe you don't know, but a lot of us know Milli Vanilli back then, they looked like models. Like they really did. Like Fab and Rob, they looked like models. So Frank Farian found the group and said, we're going to do a contract with you. So he's talking about the contract. Now, Fab is admitting that when they signed that contract, they didn't have a lawyer present. And from what I understand from the documentary, they didn't really read the contract either. People never let someone do this to you. But again, we're going to get to the exploitation part. The reason why this segment is more about Clive Davis instead of Frank Farian is because Frank Farian had fingers pointed at him. After this all came out, people did blame, like, how dare you? Like, you lied. Like, these people weren't singing, etc. Clive Davis is the one that got away with it, though. So Frank Farian signed them to this contract, and they said, great, when do we record? But Frank Farian did not want them to sing on the record. They were supposed to do one song, and that song just happened to be Girl, You Know It's True. He was going to use their face and their dance moves, because again, like I said, they were dancers, and they were going to lip sync to someone else's voice on the record. Now, lip syncing was not uncommon back then, whereas it wasn't uncommon to see someone on like, what is it called? Club MTV, or like MTV's The Grind, or like MTV Spring Break, where they would lip sync, but they would lip sync their own voice. With the case of Milli Vanilli, the voice on the song, Girl, You Know It's True, was not them. That was someone else who Frank Farian felt could really sing that song very well, but to his point, he felt didn't have the physical appearance that would really sell the song. There was another problem. The song wasn't Frank's song. The song actually came from a group in Baltimore, my hometown. And apparently, unless you were in Baltimore, you probably hadn't heard the song. So it came from this group in Baltimore called Newmarks. The story of Milli Vanilli's Girl, You Know It's True, from the Baltimore group whose song they borrowed. So this part here, again, this was Milli Vanilli. There's Rob, there's Fab. I told you again, they look like models, right? So it goes on to say here, forget for a minute that the two men that you thought sang Milli Vanilli Girl, You Know It's True didn't actually perform it. While you're at it, pretend it was not even their track. It says here, if you grew up in a certain part of Baltimore, DC, Maryland area in the mid 80s, you might have heard the hip hop group Newmarks. The crew of childhood friends, Sean, DJ Spencer, DJ Wayne, Kevin Lyles, Daryl Mims, and Rodney Cool Rod Holloman. They spent years trying to break into the local rap game as teens via local radio show and some self-released singles before their fortunes took an unexpected turn. So this is Kevin Lyles. So Kevin and his buds, they wrote that song, Girl, You Know It's True. Now, Frank Farian, the German producer, took that song and apparently like sped it up a little bit and added a little extra beat to it, which apparently legally you could do, but they would still have to pay them royalties. This is a whole other conversation. And when he signed Milli Vanilli, he said, I got this song for you. And he put on the song and the beat goes, dude, 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 dude. I'm in love with you, girl. Girl, you know it's true. It's a good song. Great song. But it wasn't Frank's song. Came from Kevin and the fam. Okay? Now, from what I understand, I think Kevin and them did go on to receive royalties after all this was settled. And Kevin is now doing very, very well. So we fast forward to Frank, because y'all gonna be mad at Frank after this, but I want you to be mad at Clive Davis too, okay? Don't go easy on Clive. Now we fast forward to what happened. So Milli Vanilli, they released the single in Europe first, and it really takes off. It soars all across Europe, and it gets to the point where it became so big in Europe, they're like, they want it in the US. Now we got a problem. Because first of all, it was never supposed to get that big anyway. Second of all, it wasn't their song. But more importantly, Milli Vanilli, Rob and Fab, they weren't singing that song. The people that were singing the songs are the people right here in this video. This is Johnny right here to the left. It was his voice. And it was also this guy's voice. These were the people who were singing on the album. Now, let's get back to what I was talking about, because I don't want to confuse people. You're probably wondering, why would they agree to sing a song and not have themselves be represented in the music video or anything like that? Why would they just want to sing and be hidden? So Frank Farian paid the money. And from what I understood from the documentary, again, it was only supposed to be that one song, and it was never supposed to turn into this big thing, but it did, because women saw Milli Vanilli on TV and they lost their shit. The chicks were like, oh my God, not only can they sing and dance, but they're gorgeous too. Then they found out they were European and they're like, oh my God, they have accents. You guys know how this works. So it took off. Then they had to go to the States. They went to LA. They met with Arista Records. And this is where Clive Davis comes in, because he owns Arista Records. Now, all of a sudden, instead of that one song, they signed with them in the States, even though Frank Farian had an agreement that all the music had to be recorded in the German studio. Again, it was only supposed to be one song. Now, Arista Records says, we need you to make more songs. We got to have more songs. You're too popular. They want an album. It can't just be a single. So Milli Vanilli had to go back to Germany to record Blame It on the Rain, Girl, I'm Gonna Miss You, and other songs. And what was odd about this is typically the producer, the American producer, would have been able to go into the studio with the artist. But Frank Farian had a rule that no one was to be allowed in his studio but the people that were the artist. So apparently Arista Records went along with this role, allegedly. The reason why nobody else was supposed to be in the studio was because Frank Farian didn't want Arista Records to see who was really singing these songs, which it wasn't Milli Vanilli. Let's fast forward and then we'll get to the confession here, because we ain't done yet. Milli Vanilli, these guys went back into the studio and then they did more songs. And at some point they kind of like, I thought it's supposed to be one song. Okay, we'll do more songs. Milli Vanilli blew the F up in the United States, across the world. They sold millions and millions of albums. They were topping the charts, whether it was Girl, You Know It's True, Blame It on the Rain, Girl, I'm Gonna Miss You. Like, it was every song they put out continued to top the charts. And then something else happened. Then Arista Records say, now you got to go on tour. You can do the Club MTV tour. So there's just one problem. They weren't singing these songs. So the other problem that you run into again is that now they have to find a way to perform these songs on tour without actually singing them. So they have to lip sync during the tour. Now, Club MTV was a little bit more cool with that because, like I said, a lot of the artists were dancing as well and not just singing. So it wasn't uncommon for people to lip sync to their songs while they're dancing, really hard on stage. So they were able to get away with it with Club MTV. And then one day something happened. The tape skipped. And it said, girl, you know it's, girl, you know it's, girl, you know it's, girl, you know it's, right in front of all of these people. And fans were like, oh my God, they're not really singing, as if you guys thought all those people were really singing all the other time anyway during this tour. But that still didn't mean that they didn't sing on the album. So there was a little bit pushback. They were like, they were lip syncing and they're like, they just played it off. No big deal. Something else happened after that, though. One of their managers at Arista Records thought that Milli Vanilli should be nominated for a Grammy. This was a big problem. It was a problem because the Grammys are different, unlike any other music award show. Unlike Billboard Music Awards, the Grammys are based on artistic merit. That means you actually have to sing. When you go to perform at the Grammys, you cannot use a tape. You cannot lip sync. You have to actually sing. He submitted them for a Grammy nomination, and everyone at Arista Records became very upset. Why would they get angry? Why would they get angry unless they knew? This manager says in the documentary that he had no idea. He didn't know that they weren't actually singing. And everyone in the company got mad at him because he submitted for. Then what makes it worse? Let's fast forward. Guess what? They actually were accepted for a nomination for Best New Artist. So Milli Vanilli was in a category with Nia Cherry. We're talking about Buffalo Stance Nia Cherry. They were in a category with Tone Loc, the Indigo Girls. And they won. They had to perform at the Grammys. According to Frank Farian's girlfriend, who handled the finances behind the scenes here over in Germany, she contacted the guy who was in charge of, I guess, the nominations at the Grammys. And she said she allegedly paid him money, bribed him to let them play the tape at the Grammys so that Milli Vanilli don't have to sing live. And ladies and gentlemen, he did it. So they went to the Grammys. They performed on that stage and they were lip syncing just like they had before. And Fab from Milli Vanilli said he believes that everybody in the crowd knew that they weren't singing on that stage. Money talks, honey. Now, something changes, right? Milli Vanilli really wanted to sing. They wanted to sing. But Frank Farian, producer in Germany, said, no, you cannot sing because it's in your contract. Now we go back to that video with Patrick Bet-David. They didn't have a lawyer with them when they signed the contract. So there was a back and forth push between Milli Vanilli and Frank Farian in Germany. Frank Farian decided to put his foot down and say, that's it. I'm killing this. I'm blowing the whistle on it. I'm going to out Milli Vanilli. These guys over here, this guy here with the glasses and dude over here with the glasses, they were kind of pissed off too, because they were very upset that something that was supposed to be just one song and on the hush turned these two guys into mega superstars. They're getting Grammy awards. They're making millions of dollars. And so the gentleman over here to the right came out publicly and said, that's my voice. but nobody believed him. He's in the documentary too. Frank Farian comes to America and holds a press conference and announces during that press conference that Milli Vanilli, Rob and Fab did not sing any of the songs on that album. And after that, Milli Vanilli were done. Talk about a public embarrassment. Listen to what Frank said, and then I'll get to the other part about Clive Davis. Listen to this.
The idea, I think it was a crazy idea. And Rob and Fab comes in the very early in 88. He comes in the studio, or in the end of 87. And he has an idea when you have maybe it's something possible for demos that was very bad. And they looks very great. And I think maybe in the next time we have an idea for you. And then we created the music, Girl, You Know It's True. The name was finished and the music was finished, and then make one click in my mind, and the crazy idea was born. Yeah.
It's very embarrassing. Yes, FM. I'm going to get to the exploitation part. It's very embarrassing. So that was Frank Farian, and that was him explaining how the events transpired. Frank Farian, basically, long story short, he was using Black artists to make a lot of money, and then he just tossed these guys under the bus. Under the bus. They were young. They didn't really understand what they were even getting into. And this is not to say, well, you know, you guys should have known what you were doing wasn't right. But remember what they thought they were signing, that this was just supposed to be one song and that they would eventually get to sing. And then Frank said, no, in your contract, it says that you can't sing. A little bit more here.
We make the second album of Milli Vanilli. Exactly, we do make the same job in 2 years ago. And we created 12 new songs, and the album is finished. And we involve new singers. There's Ray, and I think it's a good album. And I think it's fair. We show everybody where is the real singer.
Yeah. So these were the real singers. So now after he outed everything, then he's like, I want to show everybody who the real singers were. And then they went on to create an album as well, right? All of this could have been avoided, but Frank was trying to make money. And the reality is Frank knew he could make more money with those two guys, Rob and Fab, just based on their looks and their dancing skills alone, than he could on the real performers. Now we get to the Clive Davis part. Because Frank had fingers pointed at him, but people need to point their fingers at Clive Davis. And I want to bring in this part here. 11 things you may not know. And we just want to go to the one part about Clive, this part right here. Because people be lying and Sabby don't like. Okay. Clive Davis knew about the con. Legendary music exec Clive Davis was the head of Arista Records when Arista became Milli Vanilli's stateside label. The former label employees say it's normal for a label rep to be in the studio during the recording of an album, but no one from Arista was permitted in the studio in Germany during the recording of Girl, You Know It's True. While they found it strange, they didn't pursue it further. If an outside producer sees the album credits, you have to take it on good faith that it represents what actually happened in the studio, says one former exec. Clive long maintained he had no idea the duo were a fraud, but the documentary alleges the contrary. A former senior VP of Arista claims Clive knew 6 months before the Grammy Awards. Let me back it up. When you watch the documentary, they play the recording from the senior VP of Arista, former senior VP of Arista. So it's not a written statement. It's the voice of him saying Clive Davis knew 6 months before they were nominated for the Grammy that they were not singing on the album. I want to say it again. Clive Davis knew 6 months before the Grammy nomination, before the Grammys, that Milli Vanilli were not the people that were singing on the album. It was not their voice. That means that Clive Davis had plenty of time to recorrect, but Clive Davis chose not to. Clive Davis wanted to make money. And when all this hit the fan, everybody pointed fingers at Milli Vanilli, at Rob and Fab, and Frank Farian, but Frank Farian was over in Germany. These two guys were still in the US at that point in time, and they still had to deal with the BS. Clive Davis left these guys out to dry. Clive Davis was nowhere to be found, claimed he had nothing to do with this, which is bullshit. Watch the new documentary. And nobody pointed fingers at Clive. It was an exploitive situation. He used these guys. He knew he could get the money from them. You mean to tell me the same guy who sat up there and helped discover Whitney Houston, one of the greatest voices ever, in my opinion, this same guy sat up there and profited off of a group that he knew was not fucking singing at all. And they refused to let them sing. So Milli Vanilli did the right thing and decided to hold a press conference to respond to the fans. This is after people burned their t-shirts and ran over their CDs and all that jazz. And they had to give their Grammys back. I want you to hear something that they said.
Backlash against you.
Backlash?
Yeah.
Can you repeat your question, please?
How do you feel about the fans' backlash? You know, running over your records, returning them.
Yeah, I understand. I really understand them. I have to say, I understand them. Milli Vanilli will have no chance anymore. But we ended it. Rob and Fab ended Milli Vanilli, not Frank Farian. We told him, if we can't sing on our record, you have to go on the press and say that we don't sing, because we couldn't break out of our contract. Just the producer can stop the contract. The artist, for us, it would be difficult to stop a contract and try to release other albums with other producers, with other record companies. So we had to pressurize him that he stepped back, but we finished this game.
How can you expect anyone?
Do you guys hear what he was saying? So this is Rob over here to the right. Rob is no longer living, by the way. After all of this happened, Rob kind of sank into a deep depression, went through, substance abuse. And ultimately, from what I understand, from what I read, it sounds like he, ended it all for himself. But that was Rob. And this is Fab over here to the left. So what Rob was trying to explain is that we can't get out of the contract. Only the producers can do that. And so once again, this is something that Clive Davis could have helped with. But once this all came out and he knew, he let these guys out to dry. You guys know Rob ended up getting arrested, going to jail, all this kind of stuff that happened. And it's all about exploiting people, because Clive Davis cared more about making money. Frank Farian cared more about making money, boo. That's all they wanted was the money. They didn't give a fuck. When they were down and out, they had no money. When they lost all that shit, you think these people called them to see how they were doing? Here today, gone tomorrow. That's the business, kid. And it's not just the music business. But another thing here, can you log me in? Oh no, I don't have to be logged in. This part right here, I do want you guys to hear from Fab. Just another confirmation that Clive Davis knew, because it drives me crazy that no one is pointing fingers at Clive Davis. Listen to this.
I knew that look. They were looking at us like, oh. And then Clive knew, he knew all along. But the executives who didn't know, they were kind of like surprised. And I was like, oh, okay, here we go. They don't know, but now they know. So, and then it lasted as long as it lasted. And the military train kept going and it went quick. We made over $300 million. With that money was reallocated to new investments like new labels, Clive Davis, LaFace record, Bad Boy Records, So Def, all those labels, and
did everybody hear what he just said? So the money that Milli Vanilli made under Arista Records, what he's saying is Clive Davis he took that money and created other labels like Bad Boy Records, LaFace Records. So that's Babyface and them. So you see, this was all about money for Clive. I just think when people have these types of stories and everybody turns on them, it always makes me I'm just curious, like, what's the other side? And I felt like they didn't really get a fair deal. The press was completely against them. And now we find out that Clive Davis also was in on this too. And he just walks away from this with his hands clean. And I hear people praise this guy even till today. You need to start asking some damn questions about Clive Davis, damn it. Whether it's this situation or whether it's the Diddy situation, why hasn't Clive Davis made a comment about Diddy getting arrested? That was his protege, no? Clive Davis was Diddy's boss. Don't you find it strange? Clive is quiet and he's been asked this question publicly. Look for it on YouTube. You'll find them people asking him and he just slowly walks away. Don't you find it strange that he wanted to continue on with the pre-Grammy party after Whitney died in the bathtub? This is someone you supposedly care about? No? Here's the part about the money. And this is where the exploitation comes in. Terry, what'd you say? In Diddy bed part? You said in Diddy bed partner. Listen to something he said here. They're like, why'd you do it? Listen.
Wait, I still have the right to choose not to do the song.
Why I did? First, because I got a check, and I never had a check in my hand before. No, I didn't say it. No, I didn't say that it's okay. I think if I wouldn't have done it, I would still live in a project. It's not okay, but you can choose project. You can choose project as a black guy. You can choose project or fame. And if people are there who seduce you for this, then it's a crime maybe. And I say I did something wrong, but I say not that our fans should do this or everybody who want to get up. This was a very special situation. We came from Germany. In Germany, there's no protection for artists. There's not a lawyer that you just can hire for $200. You have to understand, we were seduced, we were abused, and we felt very guilty. But we are here, Robin Fab is here, because we stopped it. Not Frank Farren, like you guys think. We stopped the whole thing. We said to Frank Farren, if you don't let us sing on the album, we don't do this anymore. We don't want to live like this. We don't want to be embarrassed every night by Arsenio Hall, who knew about, who knew about. Of course knew. You know what I mean? We didn't want to go to clubs and every girl say, hey, you don't sing on the record. We wanted to stop. And that's why we said to Frank, if you don't let us sing, we won't do it. So he released the second album again. So then I told my lawyers, forbid the album. So we forbid the second album, and then he tried.
Sorry, the second album is already finished, and as you maybe have written in some press statements of Arista Records, this album will get released in January.
We'll stop it there, and I just wanted you to see the pan out here of the table so you can see how they were basically by themselves. Of course, Clive, I didn't expect Frank to be there, but Clive Davis not there. wanted nothing to do with it. Even if you look on Clive Davis Wikipedia page, when it talks about all the artists that he signed under Arista, guess who's not mentioned? Milli Vanilli is not mentioned. It's like it never happened. And I'm going to say this. I was watching that documentary, like, and I got, like, I was watching it with the hubs, and I got mad. And I was just sitting there and I'm like, I'm mad. Because all these years later, people finally get to hear the other side of the story. And it sucks because I feel like it's a little too late for some, like, again, Rob, like, apparently this drove him into deep, deep depression. The part that he mentioned there about the money is where I want to get to with the exploitation. Clive Davis is one, but he's not the only one. It is not uncommon for these record executives to take advantage of people who need the money. They know you don't have a permanent place to live. You're sleeping in your friend's attic. The people who need money for food, they take advantage of people who need the money. It's not just Milli Vanilli. The same shit happened to New Edition. I mean, you had Maurice Starr, who was the manager of New Edition. Maurice Starr is a black guy, by the way, took advantage of New Edition, wasn't paying them what they were supposed to pay. This is why till this day, New Edition still goes on tour when they should be retiring. Recouped most of that money for himself. These kids going across the country with a #1 album, and they get home and they get a check for $1. Then when the New Edition walked away from Maurice Starr, you know what Maurice did to get back at them? He went and he signed an all-white group called New Kids on the Block. And he didn't take advantage of their money. You know why? Because their parents knew the business. So their parents read all the contracts. It's a shame. Sometimes your own people will do you dirty. But it's exploitation, and not just in the music business, but they were taken advantage of. Someone told me on Twitter, they were saying this recently. They said, if this would have happened to Milli Vanilli today, yes, some of the fans probably would have been upset and said, I'm canceling you. But they probably would have gained more fans and more support because they could have gone on TikTok, sang on their own. They would have had a super following on TikTok, and they'd still be able to stay in the game. But at that time, there was no social media. So when the press dissed you, you were done. And Clive Davis kept the money and kept on walking, honey. You sat right there and you watched these guys go up there and basically fight for the right to keep singing. And they actually can sing. That's the crazy part about all this. Fab went on to make his own album. They actually can sing. They wouldn't let them. And Clive Davis just sat there. Nothing to do with it, nothing. Just like he's sitting there right now. While Diddy's in jail, Clive Davis pretends to know nothing. Diddy who? I don't know this person. Now you don't know him. Whitney Houston dies in the bathtub. You continue to go on and have a damn Grammy party. Seriously? How do you go on drinking alcohol and partying with people when the person that you supposedly cared so much about this artist? Guys, exploitation is all around. It's not just in the music business. But one of the things I've continued to notice over time is that when it comes to Black artists, even if we own the label, we don't own the company. Clive Davis owned the company. And he was able to take the money that Milli Vanilli made for Arista Records and use that to build other labels all up under him. That's what I mean when I say he was Diddy's boss. And he just kept on keeping on like it was nothing. They were humiliated in front of the entire world. And nobody came to their defense. And that's the part that pisses me off. I didn't know this whole story back then. I didn't understand this whole story. I was a kid. I just knew the song sounded good. And I was just like, blame it on the rain. That's all I knew. And then one day I saw on TV, they said Milli Vanilli is not singing. They're not really singing. But again, I was a kid. I didn't really understand. What do you mean? And then they were gone. The way I understood it, they did something bad. Ooh. It's not just Clive Davis. It's not just Frank Farian. We need to find out who the others are. Because I don't like exploitation. And I really don't like when people are taken advantage of when they're down and out. And they knew these guys were down and out and they didn't have any money. And they preyed on that. And for Clive Davis to continue on knowing he knew that they weren't singing and they had the Grammy nomination, and you let them go out there and pretend to sing at the Grammys where everybody can tell you're not singing live. It's explosive. It blows the lid off of and to sell them out like that instead of just doing the right thing. Why didn't you get them a vocal coach? Why didn't you get them and help them to get to the point where they can just go ahead and sing? So we have to call out exploitation in all forms, whether it's the music industry, whether it's movie, TV, Hollywood, etc. We have to call it out in all forms. Otherwise, it'll continue to happen. Let's go to some of the comments here. The Oracle said, but now, truth be told, Milli Vanilli knew they weren't singing. That's true. They got exploited, but they knew they were doing wrong. That's true. Well, if you guys didn't know about Milli Vanilli tonight, you probably know about them now. Some of the people in the chat are probably like, I don't even know who these guys are. Let's go to the comments. Sorry. J.O. said, Clive got super rich off exploiting Black artists, especially Whitney. Yeah. Thank you for the super sticker, Carol. Miss Kiwi, Beyonce, Britney Spears, and Madonna never sang live on an award show. They lip sync too. Right, but they sang on the albums, you know? Red, Connive didn't care about Whitney either. Pine Martin, Elwin, I bet you Whitney Webb could tell you who Clive was shifting money around with. Ooh, that's a good point. Frank, Sabby, the United Healthcare Board continued their meeting after the CEO was killed. The rich don't give a fuck. That's a good point there, Frank. And Casey said, what accent is that? So I think it's Bavarian accent. I'm assuming that's who you're talking about because Rob did most of the talking. Okay, let's get Rockfin. Yeah. Thanks, Roger. Sabrina, I always make the argument that it is technology that changes the culture. Now that we have streaming services since Sean Fanning of Napster fame ushered it in, we are seeing the decline of record companies, just like YouTube and other streaming services are killing corporate news and cable TV. Luther Vandross signed under Clive. Documentary is in theaters now. I suspect Clive is a Zio. Well. Every now and then it's good to do a different story. I hope you guys like these deep dives. Like, I'm going to try to do at least one deep dive, maybe not every week, maybe every other week, into a different subject. Because a lot of people reached out and said they really liked the one about the billionaires and they really liked the one I did about Gloria Steinem. So I'm going to try to do like these deep dive things. Yeah, man. All right, cool. Your Brown Bunny said, love this deep dive. Yeah, man. Thank you. All right. And that's it for me, guys. I will be live again Sunday evening. So I'll see you guys then. So I will see you when what's this one say? Thank you, Funky Lollipop. Sabby, I'm a singer, songwriter, and my ex stole my music. Can't trust no one. Sad. No, it's true. That is very true. Thank you guys so much. Thanks for hanging out. Have a good night. Keep up the fight.